This file was produced from images generously made available by the Bibliothèque nationale de France, Benin et Gallica. Monseigneur Chabot, prélat de sa sainteté, curé de Pithiviers-Loiret Noël, in Foreign Countries 1906. Noël dans le pays étranger, by Alphonse Chabot, produced by Suzanne Schell, Reynold Levesque, and the online distributed proofreading team. Note of the transcriber. All extraneous material from the edition that served to produce this document is reported at the end of the document for those who might be interested in it. Noël in the North Countries. We will only quote the adaptation of Adeste Fidelis. Oh, come all ye faithful. The services differ little from ours, except that church songs are often performed in the vernacular language. Sweden and Norway, England. Germany Christmas celebrations in northern countries have a dual religious and family character. Oh, come, all faithful so popular in England, and the Cantique des Anges Angels song that eminent singers make resound every year in the Protestant Church of Moses and Aaron in Amsterdam. Christmas is really the supreme family festival in the northern countries of Europe. Every family, no matter how poor, has its great vigil tree adorned with lights and decorated with toys and all sorts of treats. Scandinavia 8 days before the feast of Christmas. The squares of Stockholm are covered with fir trees that the peasants cut down in nearby forests and come to sell in the city. In Norway, the Christmas festival once enjoyed certain privileges. The poor are not forgotten. Parties are organized for them, and they receive clothes and generous silver alms. Thus, the proceedings of justice were suspended for several days, generally from Christmas to Epiphany. This truce in trials varied according to local laws. Sometimes its duration extended up to 20 days. In all Scandinavian countries, the Christmas feast is prepared discreetly and in secrecy, so that the gifts offered on that day bring both surprise and satisfaction. In secret, young girls put the final touches to their work. One has embroidered a pair of slippers for her father, another a couch cushion for her mother. In some countries, the distribution of gifts is most original. Their older sisters wrap in fine white paper a silk purse made with crochet and embellished with a pink favor, or else make beautiful and rich lace, which they will offer as altar cloths. That's the Swedish name for the present into the room where the family is gathered. The messenger tasked with delivering it knocks firmly on the door, which opens without delay, and furtively throws the julekklap. Then begins a most entertaining scene. The present, carefully concealed within a bouquet of flowers, a bundle of hay or straw, or in multiple envelopes of fabric, foliage, or paper, bears in large letters the name of the person it is intended for. Nothing. The recipient starts meticulously searching through flowers, hay, straw, foliage, or paper, amidst shouts of joy from all the spectators, in an attempt to locate the coveted item. A peal of laughter greets the disappointment of the patient, victim of this innocent trickery. Sometimes he finds a golden pin, sometimes a precious vase, occasionally an elegant and graceful statue, but sometimes, too, after unrolling the mysterious envelopes, he finds the julekklap sometimes has a moral and satirical character. A talkative person is given a pillow or an extinguisher, a fat person a steel collar. The too elegant lady receives a bizarrely dressed doll. The lord who, in his salon, keeps the light too low or leaves his antechamber in darkness gets a dozen lanterns. When there is nothing left at the bottom of the rubbish bin, which the children have carefully searched through the scattered papers on the floor, to see if anything has been left behind, the family goes to the dining room, where they are greeted by a supper composed exclusively of national dishes. In Scandinavian countries, the Christmas meal stands out from others due to the traditional nature of the dishes served. No Christmas supper is complete without ham, accompanied by hot rice poured with cold milk. Then wortbrod, a type of bread made with wheat flour diluted in unfermented beer, and finally the indigestible lustfisk. Imagine a dried and desalinated hake or cod, boiled for 3 days in a mixture of ash water and quicklime, then stuffed with pepper, mustard, and horseradish. This is the lustfisk one. Strongly alcoholic Spanish wines are the only ones that can digest such a hearty meal. Note 1. Mr. Bitard, Noël. On the evening before Christmas, around 11 o'clock, in the hamlets, everyone climbs into a sleigh and goes to the service. 1,000 stars twinkle in the silence of the night, disturbed only by the jingling of the horse bells that crackle the snow beneath their hooves. As soon as the service is over, everyone returns to their homes as quickly as possible. Usually, near the village church, a large barn offers shelter, benches for the peasants, and stalls for their horses. At this time, in Finland, a most entertaining scene unfolds. An old belief promises the best harvest of the year to whoever returns home first after Christmas service. This then becomes a conspiracy against the teens. Young boys furtively leave church during the service, untie the horses, tie sleds together, switch collars, tangle harnesses, etc. The ensuing chaos, cries, and sometimes even fights transform the church square into a true battlefield. 2. Finally, the sleds are found. Each repairs their team, and they set off at a gallop. The battle ends with a race to the bell tower. Note 2. Display, Noël. Oh, Panda, Braziun, Infernal No Bay, Iceland. In most rural areas, housewives ensure order and cleanliness reign throughout their homes during Christmas festivities. Is this in memory of the straw and the poverty of the manger? It is customary to spread fresh straw on the floors, giving the family room the appearance of a barn where sheaves have been laid out before threshing. We are inclined to believe so. Whatever the case, this Christmas straw is said to have a wonderful virtue. Animals that eat it are preserved from any illness for the year. Note 3. Christmas celebration in Sweden and Finland. In Sweden, farmers want all animals to participate in the Christmas solemnity. On that day, says Mr. Leos on the Duke, they set their guard dogs free. They serve their livestock elite fodder. It is a fairly common practice in Sweden and Norway to offer, on Christmas Day, a meal for birds. On December 25th, in the morning, it is tied to the end of a pole and decorated on the roof beam of the house. The last sheaf of the harvest is carefully preserved, among the poor as well as the rich, until the eve of the great solemnity. It is a charming and dazzling concert, that of the granivorous folk making a din around this pole to peck at the ears of wheat. All the little inhabitants of the air also take their joyful feast, and give thanks to Providence, who, on such a happy day, has wanted to fill them with joy. Note 4. Racine, Athalie, Act 2, Scene 7. One of our finest poets has graciously sung this. This ravishing Swedish custom reminds us of those two well-known verses. To the birds' young ones he gives their pasture, and his goodness extends over all nature for. New Year's Eve of the little birds. And will the field birds not celebrate? Oh, no. They whom cruel winter decimates every day, they whom cold passes by, whom famine threatens on the bare tree where their love nests. And from here, you can see the chaffinch, the bullfinch, the tiny wren flying at the coal. While eating the grain, they raise their heads to launch a song, a cry of joy to the sky. For them one seeks a tangled sheaf, where thousands of ears bend under the grain. It is spread out on the snow. Fly, gentle winged one, for your table is laid, and the feast is ready. 5 Note 5. Countess O'Mahony. B. England. Note 6. The old ending, mas means festival. The English people celebrate the solemnity of Christmas with such joy, such unanimity and such expenditure, that one can regard Christmas as their national festival. Christmas, the festival of Christ. In former times, at Christmas, there was a carnival celebration. English carol songs tell us about the characters who took part in these masquerades. The King of Bountifulness, the Queen of Madness. The Princess Reasonless appear amidst a noisy procession. At court, among the princes, an officer was charged with presiding over the festivities. He was known as Lord of Misrule, the Lord of Chaos. In Scotland, he was called Abbot of Unreason, the Abbot of Reasonless. These offices were abolished by an Act of Parliament in 1515. The priests had to intervene several times against the frivolity of these entertainments. In folklore collections, there are accounts of joyful bands led by the King of Chaos and the Princess of Bombis during Christmas celebrations. Alas! Under foolish disguises, neighbors would boldly present their Christmas tirelire to the queen of the festival and request generosity of joy. gaiety, laughter, and alms of pleasures, that they are far today from those days when Henry II served his son, king of the feast, at table, and brought him, to the sound of trumpets, as a dish of honor, a boar's head crowned with laurel and rosemary, burying its formidable defenses in thick bloomed apple or golden orange. The gloomy Reformation blew upon all these joys, extinguished all these lights, and falsified all these trumpets. Note 7. Oscar Havard, Les Fêtes de nos Pères. And how time has passed since 130 of London's most powerful citizens, dressed in fantastical costumes and titles, kings, queens, ministers, chosen by madness, meet the grandson of Edward I, all united in one joy, singing Christmas. Old Christmas brought his sports again. I'm the well, Capsubaron Bay. 'Twas Christmas broached the mightiest ale. The illustrious Walter Scott tells us that his ancestors already looked forward to Christmas as the ultimate family festival. England was merry England when 'twas Christmas told the merriest tale. Oh, a Christmas gambol oft would cheer the poor man's heart through half the year. Enormous preparations are made for Christmas. Generous shipments of fat geese come from Normandy. 2 steamboat lines, from Dieppe to New Haven, and from Le Havre to Southampton, barely sufficed for their transport to England. England was the joyful England when old Christmas brought back his joys. It was Christmas that tapped the strongest beer. It was Christmas that told the happiest tale. The Christmas frolics often cheered the poor man's heart for half the year. Poitou and Touraine also send their stuffed turkeys to John Bull. In 1901, a small province in the center, Sologne, sent more than 60,000 turkeys to London by train. It is deposited in large open crates, known as harasses, and transported on ship decks. Ships from Southampton and New Haven pick up heaps of mistletoe, this parasitic plant that the Gauls would cut with golden scythes at Granville and along all the coasts of the English Channel. One prepares several weeks in advance for Christmas, says Mr. Alphonse Chabot. Immense flocks of geese travel solemnly from northern England, along every route to the metropolis. Great bulls announce their arrival on trains or ships with lugubrious bellowings. In London, a few days before Christmas, an exhibition of animals to be sold for Christmas takes place in the large Islington Hall, known as the Agricultural Hall. Cows, geese, turkeys vie for the top prizes. The most highly prized then adorn the windows of industrialists with their plump meats after being bought by weight in gold. On Christmas Eve, says Mr. Vermetre, all London is illuminated. The butchers' shops especially are resplendent with lights. One sees stripped cows, lying whole on stands with gas lamps in their muzzles. One often reads above them these advertising words, brought up by Her Majesty, reared by Her Majesty the Queen. Indeed, Queen Victoria grazed herds at Windsor, Hampton Court, and even Kensington Gardens, London's Boulogne Wood. On December 24th evening, around 2 o'clock, agitation becomes extraordinary in London's most populous areas, especially Whitechapel. Coachmen cab drivers, perched behind their carts, bravely guide their horses. All right, everything's fine, resounds in conversations. Everywhere there are piles of fowl, not seen in the central halls of Paris. Louis Blanc, with his vivid and original pen, has given us the most picturesque and true depiction ever made of London's Christmas. What enormous cuts of meat! What mountains of bloody flesh! What a luxury of imposing comestibles! The misty city offers this strange spectacle of growing activity until the middle of the night. Counted by myriads, proudly displayed, sheep stools, veal heads, boar snouts, turkeys, ducks, geese, chickens, partridges, pheasants, plovers, rabbits, and fish of every species and size. This is what they call the Baron of Beef. At the Constitutional Club, one of London's most important circles, they roast a huge piece of beef, weighing between 300 or 400 pounds, every year for Christmas. The most distinguished members of the club fail not, during Christmas Eve, to visit the Baron of Beef. For Christmas, the interior of the house receives a special decoration. One then sees, before the immense fireplace, the black garments of the most elegant fashionables mingling with the white vests and aprons of the cooks. Clusters of holly, with shiny leaves, brightened by their little red berries, adorn the humblest homes as well as the lordly castle. The red berries, say the old songs, handsomely crown the head of dark winter. Garland wreaths of laurel, ivy, and flowers surround the chandeliers, pictures, and ancestral arms. But it is the GI above all, the mistletoe, said to be designed to chase away witches, that plays the greatest role in Christmas decorations. Who has not admired the crossed branches of the Druid plantate, its pale foliage, sprinkled with white and transparent seeds like coral pearls? Note 8. The Druids regarded holly, because of its perpetual verdure, as the emblem of the immortality of the soul. It was gathered on the 6th night of the new moon after the winter solstice. This night, called the Mother Night, marked the beginning of the Gaulish year. A Druid, in white robes, climbed onto an oak with a golden sickle in his hand and cut the root of the plant which other Druids received in a white cloth, for it must not touch the earth. It was ignited with embers from last year's log. Once, on the eve of Christmas, after the usual prayers and acts of piety, candles were lit, and with great solemnity, the head of the household placed in the hearth a log called Julelandijn, or Christmas block. As long as it lasted, there were numerous gatherings, songs, and stories told. This custom still exists, particularly in northern England, but accompanied by certain superstitions. Note 9. Yule is an Anglo-Saxon term for the festival. If the log goes out before the end of the night, or if someone squints or goes barefoot while it is burning, it is considered a bad omen. December was known as Si Ora Geola before the festival, in January as Cf Terra Geola after the festival. Note 10. On Christmas Eve, Christmas carolers, songsters will be heard at people's doors. They are known as waits. Christmas carols are our Christmases. Washington Irving, in his excellent work. Some do it purely out of kindness, honoring their friends or family members. The Sketchbook tells the following. Finding myself at a friend's on Christmas morning, still in bed, I heard the sound of little footsteps ringing at my door. Soon a chorus of childish voices began to sing the old Christmas carol, "Rejoice, our Savior, he was born on Christmas Day in the morning. Rejoice, our Savior is born on Christmas Day in the morning." I gently rose, quickly opened the door, and beheld one of the prettiest groups of fairies a painter could imagine. They were going round the house and singing at every door. It consisted of a little boy and 2 little girls, the oldest not more than 6 years old. They looked like 3 seraphs. Other singers go about the streets, begging for themselves the few pence that the generosity of the watchman chooses to bestow upon them. In some parts of England, children gather to go from cottage to cottage, singing glees, refrain songs. One of these popular carols, with a lively and cheerful tune, has the refrain: "The merry, merry time, the merry, merry time, bless the merry, merry Christmas time. Le joyeux, joyeux tombe, le joyeux, joyeux tombe béni, soit le joyeux, joyeux tombe de Noël." It's true, God grant to all of you the joy of love, who make honor to dance at Christmas. This custom of singing Christmas carols is one of the oldest, as proven by an Anglo-Norman carol that we have discovered, and of which we quote the first stanza. "Lords, hear us now, we've come from far away to ask for Christmas. In this hostler's house that the sun holds its annual feast, it is the day. God gives here joy of love to all those who will honor the Christmas Day 11. Note 11. Marie de France's Lay. Max O'Rell, who had made a long stay in London, said in his book titled John Bull and His Island, "Christmas is the great family party in England. Indeed, in every English family, rich or poor, Christmas is celebrated with a feast where dishes are served in abundance. The choice cut is first sirloin, the Lord Alloyau, that Charles II, in a moment of good humor, had knighted knight. Then appears the culinary sign of English nationality, the famous plum pudding. Roasted goose, roast goose, follows as the favorite dish, when roasted turkey does not take its place. Hip, hip, hurrah! Honor to the king of the feast. 12. Buying, or Note 12. Making Christmas pudding is a most solemn affair. Every member of the family turns the paste that is to become the cake. Sometimes these reach gargantuan proportions. Some corporations had puddings made that absorbed hundreds of pounds of flour and Corinthian grapes. At the convent of Ewell, writes one of our friends, We organized our feasts according to English and French customs, English for the secular side, and French for the religious side. The famous pudding that an Irish brother excelled at preparing. Finally appear the minced pies, flaky pâtés that encase hashes of meats, spices, and fruits. Oranges, candies, almonds, and hazelnuts appear at dessert. The English pour forth torrents of sherry Xérès wine from Spain, made in London. It was a joy without equal to see the blue flames of alcohol running down its golden sides. And when, in a final frenzied dash, the pretty little flames faded, the pudding was cut into succulent slices, to the acclamations of all, while the poor brother sighed over the theft of a work where he had put all his culinary talent. Port wine, ginger wine for the abstainers, whiskey, even gin, play a quite significant role in the world where one drinks. Note 13. This is what we call a pâté à la mousse. Note 14. Those who abstain from intoxicating liqueurs. At the universities, especially Oxford and Cambridge, it is tradition to eat a boar's head at Christmas. At Sandringham, where King and Queen of England usually spend every year's Christmas holidays, a young swan was served this year as Christmas roast. 500 years ago, roasted swan was a coveted dish among gourmets and appeared on grand Christmas tables. This swan has been fattened under the care of the Master of Swans at court, an ancient official whose duty is to oversee the breeding and feeding of swans that inhabit the parks and gardens of royal properties. Edward VII revived this tradition and instructed his Master of Swans to fatten a dozen of his charges, which he presented as gifts at Christmas to royal families, some high court officials, and the judges of the highest court. 15. Note 15. Le Gaulois, December 26, 1904. The wealthy Englishman wishes for his poor brother to rejoice at Christmas. The newspapers are filled with appeals from charitable societies of all kinds. Subscriptions pour in, and private wallets open widely to provide the poor with their share of this national celebration. The French Hospital, located on Shaftesbury Avenue, and served by the French servants of the Sacred Heart, receives, each year in abundance, geese, turkeys, and puddings for patients, convalescents, and the infirm. This detail was given to us in London itself by the superior of the establishment. In some towns in England, the mayor receives at Christmas time 100 old people who come to drink tea, while his wife gathers together helpless widows. Elsewhere, there are foundations for donations of meat, woolen blankets, and coal sacks. Thus, the annual distribution of the Shoreditch Christmas Parcel Fund, Christmas Parcel Society, established in 1870, took place at the Pitfield Street Baths. A few kind words were addressed to the assembly by Councillor Dr. Davies, president of the society, who was assisted by the Honourable Claude Hay, M.P., Alderman Pierce, 16 Doran. 196 of the poorest citizens in the locality, most of them having large families, received a food parcel containing half a pound of tea, half a quart of flour, half a pound of sugar, and all that is necessary to make a good Christmas pudding, and additionally, a ticket for 100 pounds of coal. Note 16. The Daily Telegraph, December 23, 1904. In some workhouses, poorhouses, charitable ladies offer a full Christmas dinner, roast beef, plum pudding, and beer, unless a temperance society intervenes to replace the beer with tea. On Christmas Day, a dinner is ordered by the Queen of England for over 1,000 poor people. In these workhouses, they even sometimes prepare a religious ceremony at midnight, something quite new for Protestant England, called the watch service, just as Catholics have their midnight mass. Her Majesty, accompanied by the Princess of Wales and her grandchildren, walks through the great halls, speaking to her guests of the day, rejoicing them with her presence, while at the same time she herself has sent blankets to London hospitals. The first is Snapdragon. After the Christmas dinner, various games are played. We will mention only two. Raisins, secs, and almonds are placed on a large cup and covered with natural water, on top of which floats a thin layer of brandy. 17. Note 17. Nicolay. Then I like this punch of a new kind, and it is to swiftly remove, without burning, grapes and almonds that the ripples of a long flame protect for a long time against any assault. Histoire des Croyances. Tome 2, p. 81. Hide-and-seek cache-cache is played in old manners. Our literal translation gives it in all its simplicity. Christmas in the old castle. It's party time, and on this occasion, the old woman, with her faltering voice, never fails to recite the legend of Bolo. It is a Christmas carol that dates, they say, from the 5th century. The daughter of the noble Biron plays with her companions. She plays hide and seek. What delight! She hides so well, that she disappears and no one can discover her. Not even her fiancé, the young and handsome Lord Low. Days, weeks, months, years pass. 20 years later, as we needed a tablecloth for the Christmas feast, we opened an old armoire by chance and found, oh horror, a skeleton crowned with faded white roses. Young girls, think of the fiancé of handsome Lord Low. British Christmas is mainly the children's festival. English schools have 2 annual holidays. One, which is the longest, takes place in summer. The other is granted for Christmas. It is due to the presence in the house of children scattered in colleges that the family reunion is complete. On Christmas night, the children reign as sovereigns, and, like in ancient Saturnalia, the world is upside down. On Christmas Eve, the children hang their stockings on their iron beds, where Father Christmas Santa Claus will come to deposit. They believe, or pretend to believe, the toys and treats that he and his mother will actually leave there. Sweet tyranny of a few hours, as Emile Augier says. We truly exist only through these small beings, who take root in our hearts and rule, who take our lives without realizing it, and find happiness only by not being ungrateful. The whole family is gathered. Then it's the sound of young voices, the clapping of eyes, the tiny feet tapping under the table. Granny asks for silence. She has brought a bottle of her oldest cognac. The gaslight shines again, and the pudding is seriously reduced. The pudding is drizzled with it. The gaslight is turned off, and the youngest baby lights the brandy, its flames sparkling in blue reflections, as the boisterous youth improvise a circle around the large table. First, they divide up the shares for those absent. Note 18. Sheep breeders. The post, from the very next day, will deliver to the colonists of New Zealand, to the sheep farmers of Australia, to the garrisons of India and the Cape, this touching memento of friendship. England celebrates Christmas with true joy. It is the time chosen for exchanging wishes and gifts. Christmas is indeed the New Year's Day, and marks the transition from one year to the next. Thus, a large number of Christmas cards leave England for all corners of the anglicized and colonized world by the ever-encroaching British conquest, an empire on which the sun never sets. Most of the wishes expressed can be summed up in these. We have before us a very complete collection of Christmas cards. Some are exquisite, on delicate and colored paper, sometimes with photographs or engravings of graceful landscapes, or pictures from great masters, with sincere wishes foretold. A very happy Christmas, and a bright and prosperous New Year, from X, with sincere wishes for a very happy Christmas, and a bright and prosperous New Year, from XX. These cards are within the budget of all. They range from 10 cents to 50 francs. The London Post Office dispatches over 60 million on Christmas occasion. Sometimes a tiny box containing a few grains of Christmas pudding is attached. Every English family that does not receive news of absent loved ones at Christmas feels profound sorrow, and if they are close relatives or intimate friends, the whole family mourns. The day after Christmas is called Boxing Day, due to the boxes, collection boxes that are distributed by postmen, milkmen, bread deliverers, and many other unknown friends who come to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. You can only respond by giving tips. The Englishman carries the memory of Christmas everywhere with him. On that day, the population takes advantage of cheap trains, invades places where people have fun, and seems to completely forget that Christmas is a religious feast. In his most distant colonies, on the sands of Africa, or in the frozen lands of the north, he brings together his compatriots as if they were all part of one family. A national subscription was opened across the United Kingdom. Together they celebrate Christmas. Standing, with a glass in hand, they send a fraternal greeting, and their wishes for happiness to their loved ones left beyond the ocean. During the Crimean War, English ladies were moved by compassion for their unhappy brothers, who in front of Sevastopol, amidst an exceptional winter, inspired admiration throughout Europe with their courage and endurance. Just a few days before Christmas, ships loaded with poultry, puddings, and liqueurs set sail for the Black Sea. On December 25th, English soldiers joyfully celebrated Christmas and drank to the triumph and prosperity of Old England. A London newspaper once depicted Christmas in an English guard unit. The scene is most picturesque. It takes place in the Transvaal. Note 19. Displays, Noël, page 67. The rifles are aligned in bunches. A garland of greenery runs across the cannons. A lit candle burns at the end of each bayonet, and the soldiers merrily clink glasses around this new-style Christmas tree, reminding them all of the joys of absent. Homeland.u. English Catholics give the religious Christmas celebration the greatest solemnity. One must go to the beautiful and rich Oratory Church in London to hear Palestrina's magnificent music. Wherever he is, on the deck of a ship, under the tent or rough hut of an explorer, lost in polar ice, the Englishman, forgetting for a moment his sorrows, his fatigues and dangers, never fails to welcome old Christmas with joy and hope, to which it is entitled. It is a spectacle of strange beauty. In Ireland, on Christmas Eve, many Catholic families emerge from their homes, each holding a burning resin torch in hand. They look like waves of light undulating in the darkness. All these pious communities gather in the center of the parish, around an immobile circle of torches. To conclude, let us quote a charming page from Lord Walsh, who tells of a midnight mass in exile. We were there on Christmas Day. It was in northern England, in a beautiful castle at Standon Hall, the home of Lord Southwell, a fervent Catholic who, during the bad times, had offered hospitality to his parents and friends from France. Old Bang or County, to June, our fresh boy died. The night before, we had hung garlands of bright evergreen holly with its berries resembling coral pearls. In the gallery facing the altar, reserved seats were surrounded by a crimson. In the chapel, the altar, the tabernacle, the pews, and the candles were made of polished mahogany, adorned with gold, and a thick carpet of the brightest colors covered the steps of the little sanctuary. Snow and cold without, but within this blessed place, all was clean, warm, and comfortable. Long ago, since that Christmas feast, I have counted many All Souls' Days, many Day of the Dead. Lady Southwell, my mother's sister, Lady Gormanston, her daughter, Mrs. de Choiseul, her nieces, formed this family choir. Among those who sang then before the altar at Standon Hall, some sing now before God in heaven. Among these ceremonies, the offering of gold, incense, and myrrh stands out, which the Queen of England makes every year on Epiphany, following the example of the three kings. Many years have passed, many diverse fortunes befallen me since the merry Christmas time. I have heard Mozart and Rossini's musical masses, and all these years, memory the Christmas Mass, sung in exile. This custom dates back to the earliest antiquity. The English ritualists are excusable to a certain extent in imagining themselves Catholics, as ceremonies dating back 8 centuries still take place in their churches, and have survived all the changes introduced by Protestantism into the Anglican Church. Since then, the sovereign is represented by 2 gentlemen of his chamber. For over 800 years, English sovereigns would personally present their offerings, and this practice ended only during the reign of George III, when Princess Caroline died on the eve of Epiphany. The ceremony takes place in the Royal Chapel at St. James's Palace, and proceeds as follows. Morning prayer is recited. Thereafter, the Protestant Bishop of London, assisted by the Subdean of the Royal Chapel, conducts the communion service. Following the recitation of the Nicene Creed, the 10 choir boys of the Royal Chapel, dressed in their distinctive scarlet robes with white collars, chant the antiphons, I have prayed for wisdom from you. Then, the 2 gentlemen of the chamber, in court dress with swords at their sides, are led by a herald carrying a silver rod towards the altar. The Bishop of London approaches them and presents a plate in vermeil upon which they lay the Queen's offerings. These are enclosed within a red silk bag, embroidered with gold, consisting of 3 sealed packages in white paper with red wax. The first 2 packages contain myrrh and incense. The third holds 25 newly minted gold sovereigns, distributed to poor people from nearby parishes. Since 1859, coins have replaced beaten gold sheets as part of the third offering. With their mission complete, The gentlemen of the chamber retire with the same ceremony observed for their arrival, and the service concludes with great solemnity. Note 20. An ancient plural form now rarely used, except in very rare cases. Germany. Christmas celebrations in Germany, Weihnachten Holy Night, are as popular as they are in England, but they carry a more grave and religious character. Eindolo. Children, little angels or little shepherds, form processions and traverse villages while singing pastoral hymns. In some rural areas, the mystery plays of Christmas are still performed with charming naivety. In Catholic countries, midnight mass is celebrated with great pomp. Often one sees the Madonna, Saint Joseph, Saint Nicholas, with his long beard and carrying a crook in his hand, Saint Martin riding on a white horse, and always figures necked Ruprecht, the terror of naughty children, and the joy of good ones to whom he brings presents. In several villages, singers gather at the top of the church tower at dawn on Christmas Day. The residents are woken by the singing of, "O joyful, O blessed, glorious Christmas time. O happy, O blessed Christmas Eve, so fertile in grace," resounding in the calm morning air. There are still districts in Germany where Wotan, with his cap pushed forward on his forehead, his gray cloak, and riding on his white horse, visits the cottages of the peasants. Archaeologists claim that most of the Christmas customs that exist in Germany had their origins in the old and dark forests of Germania, while the Teutons worshipped Wotan, the Scandinavian Odin, and his wife Bertha, the Mother Earth. Before his visit, the fire is carefully extinguished in the hearth, but Wotan relights it. He prefers to set an oak log ablaze. The Christmas log must burn under the ashes. It must not flare up, and in southern Germany, the ashes are kept carefully and scattered over the fields to ensure their fertility. After Mass comes the Mettenwurst midnight meal. All family members gather. From this meal, a touching custom, the remains are taken and placed in an illuminated hall for the entire night. This is the share of Christ and the angels. It goes without saying to whom this share is intended. The favorite Christmas dish for the peasant is a pig's head, with sausages and green cabbage added. Even the livestock have their place at the Christmas feast. Their hay ration is doubled. In some districts, it is believed that livestock have the gift of speech at the moment when the great celebration begins in the universe. He who is said to have good ears can hear them softly talk, while chewing, about the manger in which Christ was born. One not only needs good ears to hear livestock speak, but also to have no sin on their conscience. It is tradition at the Berlin court that every Christmas Eve, the second in command of the first company of the 1st Regiment of the Foot Guard offers the sovereign a honey cake. The imperial prince and the other sons of William II will receive similar cakes from the 1st Company of the 1st Guard Regiment. However, while the sovereign's and the heir apparent's cakes measure 35 × 21 × 8 centimeters, those of the other princes are only 30 × 18 × 5 centimeters. In the past, these cakes were made in Thorn, but for several years now, a pastry chef from Potsdam has been responsible for their production. The Christmas cake is iced and features the Guard's star and a dedication inscription. Emperor William never misses the ceremony of presenting the cake and invites the officers entrusted with this pleasant task to dinner. Note 21. In a large part of Austria, Christmas customs are exactly the same as in Germany. On the eve of Christmas, all of Germanic land is in festivity, on the banks of the Rhine, as well as those of the Danube and Elbe. From Mayenne to Vienna 21, from Königsberg to Munich, not a single family has failed to don its festive attire. The children's Christmas holds such importance that it is prepared long in advance. On the squares of most towns, elegant wooden houses with vibrant colors rise. The merchants display, with taste and fanciness, all objects that can serve as gifts for children. Then, Nuremberg toys 22 are the most sought after. Dolls of all kinds, some as shepherdesses, others as grand ladies, some as cooks, some as peasants, jack-in-the-boxes of all sizes, lead soldiers, cannons, rifles, swords, and drums. Further away stands the Hamburg pastry shop, with its crispy waffles and beautifully crafted spiced breads in the shapes of dogs, horses, cats, and sheep. Various games. Agates, tops, rings with bells, goose games, patience games. Parents there drive their children and try to capture in a glance, in a word, the expression of their desires. Secretly, they buy the coveted object and distribute it at the opportune moment, on Christmas occasion. Note 22. Nuremberg articles are very renowned. One sees them displayed at the National Museum of Munich. Oh, they are mostly made in the Black Forest, in the center of which is Triberg, one of the main seats of the clock trade known as Kaukes. Nowhere does it present itself in more captivating forms with gifts so much appreciated. But what, in Germany, dominates all popular rejoicings, making Christmas the children's festival and the day of New Year's gifts, is the Christmas tree Weihnachtsbaum 23. This comes from the difficulty of obtaining fir trees. Note 23. In northern Germany, especially in Berlin, the Christmas tree is often replaced by pyramids made with an assembly of boards and small planks, to pique the curiosity of children and make them look at Christmas gifts as mysterious, almost miraculous. Every night, one of these dwarfs keeps guard at the crevice in the rock that serves as the entrance, and another dwarf replaces him at dawn of the following day. After 360 guards, the last returns, shouting, "Christmas is almost here." Then, Santa Claus and his court emerge from their rest. They go into the forest armed with saws and axes. Then they place them on sledges and drive them to their underground palace. There, they adorn them with candles, golden apples, nuts, sweets. With fervor they cut down fir trees, 24 intended for the feast, and they decorate them with the snow covering the country, and with ice crystals hanging from the trees. With the coming of Christmas night and stars shining in the sky, Santa Claus travels on his sled through nearby villages to see if children have been good. He checks by looking through windows. If they have, he quickly descends into his home, takes a beautiful tree covered in gifts, and brings it inside. Note 24. The fir trees used for Christmas trees come mainly from the Harz Mountains. Note 25. According to Bernard Zornemann. The Black Forest also provides a large quantity. No other mountain range in Germany is as rich in magnificent landscapes, delightful sights. The lower heights are especially covered with pines and firs, with fresh and invigorating scents. Often the list is interminable. Why limit ourselves? In some families, on the advice of their mothers, children write a letter to the baby Jesus on the eve of Christmas to ask for the things they desire: a knife, a ball, a bicycle, Indian stories. Baby Jesus is so rich. This is it. A jingle bell sound echoes in the room, the expected sign. Here is Christmas Eve. In the streets, here and there, some houses are illuminated. One can hear children's laughter. Both doors of the living room open wide. What magnificence! What wealth! Astonished, the children stop for a moment, then spring forward. Here it is, the Christmas tree they had dreamed of, but more beautiful, more gleaming. Its branches reach the ceiling. On each one there are blue, green, and yellow candles, red-cheeked apples and golden nuts. Cakes, marzipan hang beside them. Colored glass balls 26, multicolored garlands, silver stars, gold crescents sparkle in the light. There is even snow on the tree, but it's not real. It's white cotton. Happy artificial birds and butterflies swing from the branches. Oh, and these groups of angels. What splendor! Red, blue, green, yellow threads climb from branch to branch up to the tip. At the top lies the Christmas angel with his blonde hair and wings full of light. Note 26. These glass objects are mainly manufactured in Lauscha, Thuringia. Every year, considerable quantities are shipped throughout Germany. The manufacturers offer 200 or 300, depending on size, for a sum of 3 to 5 marks 3 Arken, 75 to 6 or 25. At the foot of the tree are the gifts: dolls, cradles, households for little girls, trumpets, lead soldiers, guns, drums for little boys. Cheers of joy do not end. Look at the beautiful pictures in my book. Hey, hey! My horse has a real mane. All is still, only the tender, sacred pair. Then the mother sits at the piano, the children hold hands and sing the old carol so popular, Still Nacht, Heilige Nacht, which we translate literally as 27 still watches over you. Beautiful child with curly hair, sleep in your celestial peace. Bees, Dotty, Kung, BS, Wine. 3 silent night, holy night. God's Son, in love's embrace, smiles on your divine lips. Note 27. Mary and Joseph, the second, silent night. Holy night first announced to shepherds by the Alleluia of the angels. The news spreads far and wide. Christ, the Savior, is here. As the hour of salvation tolls for us. Christ, through your birth. B's.e. Then there are expressions of friendship, endless thanks, joy shines in every gaze, the most secret desires have been guessed. Christmas is the most beautiful day of the year. Finally, grandmother reads a passage from the Bible. In a shaking, pious voice, she recites the story of the Savior who was born in a stable and laid in a manger. The children listen to this familiar tale that somehow seems more beautiful each year. Sometimes, just before Christmas, a tree laden with small candles. Goethe, in his famous Werther novel, makes reference to this custom. Surrounded by her younger brothers and sisters, Charlotte tells one of them, concealing her worry behind a pleasant smile, "You'll have a colored candle and something else if you're good." In some families, it is still customary to have the servant Rupert 28 necked Ruprecht, or St. Nicholas, with a beard appear before the exchange of gifts. In popular belief, this necked Ruprecht is the same as St. Nicholas, or the English Santa Claus. Note 28. This usage is tending to disappear. Small children are afraid of it, and their health may suffer from it. Adults no longer believe in it. He is well known throughout central and northern Germany. He wears a fur coat, and a very thick beard covers his face. A wide bonnet with long hair adorns his head. He is now the messenger of the child Jesus, although he traces his origins to pagan customs. He carries a sack full of toys and treats on his back, and a wand in his hand, as part of his mission is to punish naughty children. In other parts of Germany, St. Nicholas and St. Martin are the messengers of the infant Jesus. St. Martin is the famous bishop of Tours, and St. Nicholas is the equally famous bishop of Meyer in Lycia. Their holidays fall around Christmas time 29, and this is probably why their names are mixed with the joys of this festival. In Germany, Catholics have adopted St. Martin, and Protestants St. Nicholas, but neither is separated from the child Jesus. In pious German families, children are reminded that it is not St. Martin or St. Nicholas, with his material gifts, who is the main visitor during the Holy Vigil, but the child Jesus. In homes where the coming of the child Jesus is depicted, he enters holding a gingerbread heart in his hand, symbolizing the renewed heart he brings to all those who await him. When he appears, they sing a charming childlike Christmas. Christkindl, Christkindl, come into our home. For their part, children hold out a glass of wine to refresh the child Jesus, and a bundle of straw for the donkey on which he rides. We have a bundle of hay and also a glass of wine. The bundle for the donkey, for the child, the little glass, and we can also pray, "Descend to our house, dear little Jesus, child, that we have a sheaf of straw, and also a glass of wine. And we know how to pray, too. The sheaf is for the donkey for the child, the glass." Note 29. St. Martin's Day is November 11th, and St. Nicholas Day is December 6th. The necked Ruprecht is often depicted by some friend of the house who, in order not to be recognized by the children, wears, as we have said above, a fur hat, a long beard, and a big staff. Suddenly a bell is heard, the door opens, and Christkindl appears. She is a young woman dressed in white and wearing a hemp wig 31. This usage is thus recounted in the Journal des Voyages. On the evening of December 24th, in a well-lit room, the Christmas tree is decorated with objects and treats. The children are divided between hope and fear. Suddenly a loud noise of metal is heard, and soon St. Nicholas with his fur-covered body appears. Her face is smudged to make her unrecognizable, and she wears a crown on her head. In one hand she holds a bell, and in the other a basket filled with candies. His entirely black face is framed by a large beard. With a deep, resonant voice, he asks who the naughty children are. So then good parents intervene, pleading on behalf of the little culprits, imploring mercy for them, and promising in their name exemplary conduct going forward. Note 30. Kindle little child, Christkindl, little child Jesus. The demon is chased from the home, and soon thereafter all one hears around the Christmas tree. The object of all desires are nothing but loud laughter and childlike applause. Note 31. Germans are characterized by light blonde hair and blue eyes. Many Bavarian soldiers, housed at the Petit Séminaire d'Orléans in La Chapelle-Saint-Mesmin, requested one of the study rooms to set up their Christmas tree. They sang their most beautiful songs in honor of the child Jesus, and listened with deep reverence to a very eloquent speech from their military chaplain. On the occasion of Christmas, German officers grant leaves to soldiers under their command. During the War of 1870, it was not one of the least surprising things for the French peasants invaded to see Prussians, Bavarians, Saxons, Württembergians, etc., and the Uhlans themselves, gathered fraternally around little trees decorated with lights and singing choruses glorifying the coming of the Messiah. However, one must consider the demands of service. Not everyone can be sent on leave. After the departure of the privileged ones who spend Christmas at home, there is still a large number of soldiers at quarters. Nevertheless, in accordance with the principle that declares the regiment a second family, the officers strive to entertain them during this. On the eve of Christmas, each Hauptmann captain receives from the ordinary commission a sum of about 100 marks 25 francs, spice cakes, around which pairs of suspenders, socks, and gymnastic belts are wound, and at the ends serving as a frame for pipes, photographs. In the back of the room, a barrel of beer majestically rests on an improvised stand. Night has fallen. On the evening of December 24th, a beautiful fir tree, entirely adorned with small candles, is set up in the largest room of the barracks assigned to the company. Tables are laid out around the tree and covered with crisp white tablecloths on which with crisp white tablecloths. Rows of cigar packs, wrapped in warm woolen yarns, Pfefferkuchen. The captain had already arrived with his officers, and is waiting in the chief's room. The sergeants and soldiers committee charged with preparing the party enters. The sergeant major steps forward and says, "My captain, everything is ready." "Very well. And the barrel of beer?" "It's in place, my captain." "Perfect. Would you like to call the men?" 5 minutes later, the entire company is present. A deep silence hangs over the assembly. The captain then enters the room, and instantly the soldiers begin to sing. "Oh joyful, oh radiant, grace-filled Christmas time, the world was lost. Christ is born, rejoice, rejoice, Christianity." After the song ends, the sergeant major places in a helmet a number of slips, equal to the number of present men. The drawing is complete. Each soldier, in turn, draws one, and then claims the corresponding gift. The barrel is pierced. "To all my friends, I wish you all a happy holiday." The captain, with a glass in hand, moves to the center. After a short speech of the occasion, he concludes with these words: "Auf gesamten Welt, Leute." After a few minutes, having chatted amicably with the soldiers, the Hauptmann retires to present his personal greetings to the NCOAs. A patriotic gesture, from a German journal 32, completes our account of Christmas customs in the Rhineland countries. This was in 1870, during the siege of Paris. Note 32. It is the Frankfurter Zeitung, Frankfurt Gazette, that recounts this delightful and patriotic act, filled with religious spirit. The night was icy cold, and thousands of stars sparkled in the firmament. It might have been midnight. French and German soldiers were so close that from one post to another, one could clearly hear the calls and the sound of weapons echoing on the hardened ground by a freeze of the most intense kind. Suddenly a French soldier, after asking permission from his captain, climbed over the trench and advanced a few steps towards the enemy. There he stopped, saluted militarily, and with a powerful, deep voice that filled his lungs, he sang, "Midnight, Christians! This is the solemn hour when God-man descended to us." And on the German side, the same impression prevailed, as not a sound of weapons or a word was heard. Note 33. Captain X from a Paris mobile battalion himself recounted the incident. The singer belonged to one of the capital's major theaters. When the final words of the Cantic of Adam, "People, stand up," this apparition was so unexpected, so mysterious, that voice vibrated so harmoniously in the stillness of the night. This magistral song borrowed such greatness and beauty from the circumstances. 33 Parisian skeptics and jeering spectators, we were hanging on the singer's words. Sing of liberation. Christmas! Christmas! Here comes the Redeemer. But soon after, a German soldier appeared in turn, a magnificent gunner with his helmet on, rang out amidst the general silence like a bugle call signaling victory. The soldier returned to his post, where he was greeted by all his comrades. He advanced, just as the Frenchman had, taking a few steps and saluting military style with the stiffness characteristic of his country's soldiers. There, between these two armies of men who had hitherto thought only of killing each other, he sang, in German, a beautiful Christmas carol, an hymn of gratitude and faith to the child Jesus, one's brothers. Christmas time! When, with growing emotion, he repeated the last words of the refrain. Christmas time! Not a sound or hostile movement from the French side disturbed the voice of the German singer. The entire German post joined in chorus. Christmas! Long live Christmas! And in our trenches, the French post responded in unison. Christmas! For a moment, the two enemy armies were thus united in a common thought of warmth and peace. Note 35. We are told that a similar incident occurred at the trench of La Plâtrière, near Choisy-le-Roi. The idea of Christmas, with the memory of family feasts and divine teachings, had thus transformed these men and instilled in their hearts feelings of the most fraternal charity. 35 down. N created by a lively or melancholic imagination, and more or less friendly to mystery. Christmas! Day of hope and love, exclaims a foreign writer. Is there a people in the Christian world where the return of this festival is not celebrated by customs, games, songs, and traditions that vary according to the soil and climate, taking on the hues of national character, gay or somber, sad or frivolous, depending on whether they have been? Indeed, the conditions of the environment have a preponderant influence on popular celebrations. Gather around the hearth where a large log from the forest crackles and sparkles. Thus, in Italy and Spain, Christmas customs are more external, more boisterous, in a word, an expression of a more expansive and truly southern joy. They retain, nonetheless, the essentially religious character found in northern countries. In the southern countries, where the sun shines brightly under an azure sky, without any vapor to dull its brilliance, where one enjoys starry nights, warm and caressing sea breezes, life is essentially outdoors, while in the northern countries, cold, snow, ice, and biting winds reign, inhabitants retreat into their homes for entire months, and Italy, let us first salute Rome, the city of the Caesars, the capital of the Catholic world, the residence of the sovereign pontiff. We have had the fortune to visit it at different times, and sometimes stayed there for quite a long time. It offers the grand monuments of ancient Rome to tourists, including circuses, aqueducts, obelisks, fountains, forums, and triumphal arches. We have never left it without carrying an ardent desire to see this city forever illustrious, where all peoples have passed, where all glories have shone, where all cultivated imaginations have made, at least from afar, a pilgrimage. Its numerous churches are of incomparable richness, its museums filled with the finest works of sculpture, painting, and mosaic. In its magnificent palaces, gold, marble, and frescoes by great masters abound. In him, the scholar and erudite find there the richest libraries and the most authentic documents on the origin of the Church and its history throughout the centuries. The Christian venerates the bodies of the holy apostles in every church, the revered relics of great saints. He kisses with a mixture of emotion and tears the dust of the gigantic Colosseum, impregnated with the blood of martyrs. He enters with the blood of martyrs, reverence and piety into the vast catacombs where he feels all the memories of the early ages revive with eye. Rome is dear to us for a more special reason. It is here that young clerics from all countries of the West and East, America and islands, come to complete their studies. They follow the lessons of the most eminent professors and strive to attain the highest ranks in theology and canon law. We do not know how to testify our gratitude. 36. They have kindly sent us notes on Christmas customs in their respective countries. Note 36. Mr. Abbé B., of the Procuracy of Saint-Sulpice in Rome, has been for us, many times over, the most intelligent and devoted of intermediaries and correspondents. The whole month of December in Rome serves as preparation for Christmas. After spending the rest of the year on the mountains surrounding the city of Rome, they descend into the streets and come to announce the great popular feast 37. Upon the return from Advent, the gracious shepherds appear, known as pifferari, that is, pipe players, from the Italian word piffero, referring to the pipe, because in old times the pipe was their favorite instrument. This is one of the most innocent and touching traditions of centuries of faith. They are usually in groups of 3, an old man, a mature man, and a child. Thus, they recall an ancient belief that counts only 3 shepherds at the nativity scene. Note 37. They mostly come from Sabine and the Abrazes. They walk through the streets, playing their rural instruments to accompany their songs. These innocent melodies, reminiscent of the great mystery of Bethlehem and the return of joyful days, evoke faith and piety in most of the faithful. It is said that they represent the happy shepherds who went to the manger to venerate the child Jesus, and indeed, the practice of these 9-day chants as a prelude to Christmas has an ancient history. Note 38. The biniou of the Bretons is a sort of bagpipe. Their instruments are simple like all those of shepherds. The oboe, a wind instrument with a reed, whose clear and piercing sound is at once dull and lamenting, especially in the lower notes. The bagpipe, a rural musical instrument, to which air is eased, given with a bellows that rises or falls with the movement of the arm, and horrible ensemble of stretch. Ed and inflated skins that gives nasal sounds, but full of a melancholy sweetness 38. The fife, a sort of small flute with a high sound. The chalamo, and more rarely the triangle. The Highlanders, mountain dwellers of Scotland, call it pibroch, an instrument with a bellows and pipes. It is in use in some Scottish regiments. It is the bagpipe. In the campaigns of the Salone and Berry, sometimes the bagpipe is called shiv, because the bellows of this instrument is often made from the skin of this animal. The costume of the pifferari is in harmony with their pious canzonetta cantate, sondlet. Uncertain gait, and you will have an idea of this costume and this remarkable figure. Note 39. Monseigneur Gaume, a pointed Tyrolean hat decorated with a plume, or multicolored ribbons, and tilted on the ear, a short jacket, a thick brown or blue cloak, breeches made of sheep or goat skin, shoes ending with a sole that attaches to the foot with straps, this long black hair falling onto the shoulders, a fine beard, bright eyes, a high forehead, a slow and Valdo IP 190. L'Histoire Rome, Fundamoring, Travelet Darens Fortum. We met these itinerant artists in the streets of Rome as Christmas approached. Note 40. Paul Véron from Pithiviers. They are beautiful to look at, especially these children with their melancholic features, already grave and dreamy, with large, wonderfully blue eyes, that clear and deep blue like the sky and sea of Italy, with their silky curly hair full of golden reflections. In contemplating them, one cannot help but think of those pink faces of light cherubims, those charming and soft heads where the light seems to create an aureole, which Fray Angelico da Fiesole had long dreamed about in his cell on his knees 40. Aignoura. His works, both prose and verse, written in a style full of charm, reveal the poetic spirit and ideally beautiful soul of our excellent friend, who died piously on Holy Friday, 1888. The pifferari carry out with consciousness the pious task their fathers have passed down to them. Standing and bareheaded, they play in front of the images of the Madonna. Before them, they make their lullaby heard 41. They are hired for novenas or a serenade every day, as long as the holidays last. They never fail to arrive at the designated time, all the more cheerful as they satisfy both the devotion of their court and the needs of their purse. They triumph on Christmas Eve, so numerous they are that day, and their joyful concerts erase those of the previous days. Note 41. These 2 words can be translated as, go to sleep, go to sleep. A nina nana is a lullaby or song meant to put small children to sleep. The Italian singers address the Holy Virgin. Here is one of the cantatas they reserve for the vigil of the great feast. O tender Virgin, daughter of Saint Anne, in your womb you bore good Jesus. Immaculate Virgin, blessed be you on earth and in heaven. The angels cried, come, saints, go to the manger of baby Jesus, born in a little stable where the ox and the ass were eating. This holy night is Christmas night. Let this prayer that is sung be represented to baby Jesus. Note 42. We do not have equivalents in French to render the graceful diminutives in Italian. Virginella, Campanella, Asinella, Asinella, Angioli. The night of Christmas is a holy night, present to the child Jesus, the prayer we have sung. The last stanza is a moving prayer that applies both to the Virgin Mary and to the mystery of this day. O Immaculate Virgin, blessed in heaven, be our advocate on earth. Sometimes in the streets of Rome, one encounters poor blind people who sing, accompanied by a mandolin or guitar, songs to the infant Jesus. Here's one of the most popular. Sleep, sleep in my bosom. Sleep, sleep on my breast. Sleep, O my flower of Nazareth. My heart shall be thy cradle in the lullaby. Note 43. Sleep, O my flower of Nazareth. On my heart thou shalt be cradled and caressed, and petted, caressed. Oh, isn't fangen, then way shewend over at battle. In modern times, one still sees groups of musicians in Rome during the Christmas season, but the charming instruments of old are becoming increasingly rare. They are most often replaced by loud trombones and shrill clarinets, and usually only play true. For tips, year-end gifts. These small theaters on which they move wooden or cardboard figures are greeted with cries of joy by children. A few days before Christmas, one sometimes encounters mountain people, dressed in their picturesque costumes, who dance marionettes to the sound of their rustic instruments. They are seen as celestial messengers announcing candies and toys of all kinds. They replace in their imaginations the Santa Claus wrapped up warm from the northern regions, and they are not expected any less eagerly. What a delightful sight the Rome shops offered during the Christmas week. White madonos adorn the facades or sparkle indoors amidst the lights. Goods arranged on shelves with perfect taste appear dominated by a pretty statue of the Virgin who, on a throne of greenery and flowers, is truly the queen of the house. Small shops rise as if by enchantment along all the streets bordering the Tiber. Children led by their parents prefer to head towards St. Eustache Square and Navon Square, filled with improvised stores displaying a pileup of candies and toys of all. From morning to evening, it's a true assault from an entire people of 7 to 10-year-old buyers. For the Roman, Christmas is truly the Capodanno New Year's Day. It is at Christmas that communities exchange Agnus Dei framed in reliquaries and even cakes. Under Pope Pius IX, the Pope received the presents from the College of Apostolic Notaries. On Christmas Eve, cakes made of corn, which had been blessed by the priests of the parishes, were sent to parents and friends. These cakes varied in size depending on the value of the gift intended. He had 24 enormous portions made, which were distributed to as many poor people. Lesnel de la Salle records 44. That one year, Prince Borghese received a cake adorned with his coat of arms that measured no less than 6 meters in width. Note 44. Beliefs and Legends, Volume p. 12. This year, 1904, the reception of cardinals by the Pope at the Vatican for the presentation of New Year's wishes took on an intimate character. The sovereign pontiff then received the pontifical antechamber and the officers of his guard. But the most coveted object by the children, the best Christmas presents, is a Principio. On the eve of Christmas, each cardinal expressed himself verbally in his own name. No address was read, and the Pope did not deliver a speech, but he engaged in cordial conversation with each cardinal. This refers to a wax cradle scene depicting the infant Jesus lying on straw, Mary and Joseph in adoration beside him, and in the distance there are Principios of all sizes and prices. The most attractive for little Romans are those covered with a crystal globe. It is before this that the entire family comes to pray every evening. They carry their Principio triumphantly and place it with honor in their bedroom, which has been decorated in advance to receive it. Note 45. Rome's most beautiful Principio is still found in the ancient church of Arcoeli, on the Capitoline. These cradle scenes are usually preserved from Christmas to Epiphany. Once, in some churches, they were hidden on the day of the saint's innocence, in memory of Jesus' flight to Egypt. The famous Florentine painter, Luca della Robbia, excelled in creating ceramic creches. During the Christmas holidays, people from all neighborhoods of the city come to this church dedicated to the Virgin Mary to pay homage to San Bambino. Everyone knows him, Everyone comes to ask for his intercession. Let us recall a graceful and naive custom that exists in Rome, making Christmas, like everywhere else, the preferred festival of children. We are talking about the little preachers of the Aracoeli. It is not uncommon for him to be taken to desperate sick people, and amazing healings are said to occur in his presence. A diamond-studded sun sparkles on its chest, and necklaces. The statue of San Bambino is made of olive wood. Its robe is adorned with sapphires, emeralds, and topazes, gifts from the piety of the faithful. Such is Rome's reputation that even those who in 1849 oppressed the Pope and insulted the priests pretended to respect him and gave him the finest carriage available at the Quirinal for his visits to the sick. It remains displayed from Christmas until Epiphany in a beautifully decorated lateral chapel. There it is, surrounded by all the characters who were witnesses to the mystery of Bethlehem. When the moment comes to conceal it from view, the Franciscan monks of the Aracoeli convent carry it in procession up the threshold of the church, and with it bless the crowd. It is before the San Bambino that the children of Rome come to preach. Few ceremonies in Rome draw such a large attendance. The 124 steps leading to the church, every degree of the Capitoline Hill, all the balconies are filled with devout people awaiting this blessing as a most precious grace. Against the nearby pillar leans a small pulpit. Young orators aged 7 to 12 take turns there to deliver, in their innocent language, praises of the little Jesus. Some are composing, others are rehearsing with the young novice his Christmas sermon. 2 months before the feast, father, mother, brothers, and sisters, everyone in the family is busy. When I arrived, wrote Mingiar Gome, a little girl was occupying the chair. Judging from her size, she could be no more than 8 years old. She spoke with much grace and vivacity. The gesture was natural, the tone just and varied. The peroration was pathetic. The speaker fell to his knees, extended his small hands towards his baby, offered a naive prayer, then gave his blessing absolutely as an old preacher would have done. Note 46, LOK, ECOA, IP 459. It is therefore not surprising that for 8 days, from 10 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon, there was a crowd at Aracoeli. 47. It is here that we must speak of an imaginary character who once played a great role in Italian popular Christmas customs. It is the Befana. This word, which is obviously a corruption of Befania. Epiphania means epiphany, which means marionette or ghost. Spain.u. Note 47. See Dizionario di Tradizione by Moroni. Volume 4, P.A. We call Befana. This custom has almost completely disappeared. A ragged figure dressed in tattered clothes who is paraded in Italy on the night of Epiphany, and is often hung from windows on the very day of the festival. Varchi and Beni depict Befana as an old woman with red eyes, thick lips, and a furrowed brow. Jacques Grimm 48 states that Befana is a deformed fairy, black and ugly, who brings presents to children. In Germany, he adds, Tante Eri plays a similar role. The title of Tante seems to have replaced that of Fay, as it is the name of a generally benevolent person. Note 48. German Mythology Dictionary, SV Befana. Her legend is said to originate from Franche-Comté. She attends harvests, presides over rustic fetes, rewards diligent spinners, causes fruit to fall from trees for well-behaved children, and at Christmas gives them nuts and cakes. In Italy, her role would be that of the Christmas fairy, or the bad witch feared by children. If they are not good, parents threaten to tell the Befana about their misbehavior. She brings gifts to obedient children. To the naughty ones, she leaves only ashes and coal. Among the gifts attributed to her in Rome, we find golden pine cones that remind one of the incense and gold brought by the wise men. Since the wise men came from the east and one of them was black, children are told that the Befana is also black, and that at this time she undertakes a great journey to reward or punish. In Tuscany, she is depicted as a fairy who enters homes at night. She fills shoes placed near the fireplace with candies and toys. Mothers and governesses threaten their bambini with the Befana, whom they say is neither kind nor generous to naughty children. Street vendors display their mobile shops filled with an endless variety of treats, fruits, and toys. On January 5th, the eve of Epiphany, around 10 in the evening, Place Zavone, the largest and most impressive square in Rome after St. Peter's Square, is illuminated from within and presents a magical atmosphere. There are even pastry shops and cafes for parents, godparents, and teachers who come in droves to indulge their children, godchildren, and students. Everyone shouts, dances, plays drums, shakes bells, and even pots and pans. The main items for sale are brass tin whistles called bafane. Children buy them and walk the streets all night long, blowing on them continuously, making sleep impossible. Note 49. The Eve of St. John the Baptist. This noisy display is said to be directed at King Herod, who is to be punished for his cruelty towards the innocents. The same noise occurs, with little bells sold in the Piazza del Latrano. Well, undoubtedly Herod and his family occupy a large place in the minds of Italians. A traveler who visited last winter the churches of Rome, at Christmas time, saw everywhere, in the creches, the child Jesus covered with a thick veil. When he asked the reason for this, he was told, "It is to hide him from Herod's fury." According to some authors, 50, Elibafana would be Salome, Herod's daughter, who had St. John the Baptist beheaded. Note 50. Jacques Grimm, Locke. Her story made a great impression on the imagination of the Middle Ages, and the legend quickly took hold, adding its own fables. C.T. Dotto, Diary. Thus, when, at the famous feast, her head was presented to her with the saint's severed head, she wanted to kiss it, but a violent gust of wind blew into her face. Evil Spirits, 51, Tower. At the Cathedral of Genoa, during midnight mass, Note 51. Another legend tells that Herod's daughter, as punishment for her crime, had her head cut off by an ice block while crossing a river whose ice cracked beneath her feet. Gloria in Excelsis. All the children in attendance ring a cacophony of clay bells that do not suit the sanctity of the place. This somewhat reminds one of solemn masses in Eastern rites, Armenian, Greek, etc., where the consecration is performed to the sound of bells that the deacon and subdeacon shake from each side of the celebrant. These bells are attached to the end of a 2-meter staff bearing a round copper or silver plate. They produce a harmonious sound due to the movement given to them. This instrument is called Quechuez.52. Note 52, Lebrun.2. Explanation of the ceremonies of Mass. Balder III. In some towns in Italy, one can still see what is called La Ruota della Befana. By the way, throughout the entire Christmas Eve, these same little bells prelude to the festivities in all the streets of Genoa, in a rather amusing way. It's a circle of children singing loudly around a great bonfire. This custom still exists in Mandello, on the shores of Lake Lecco. According to legend, she comes on Christmas Day to distribute toys and treats to well-behaved children. A large procession, preceded by barbaric music and a picturesque masquerade, escorts Befana, the old woman who wears the lily and the rush. The party ends in the village square with a bonfire in which the effigy of the old woman is burned. She is supposed to rise from her ashes the following year. In the same village of Mandello, the leader of the people, Il Capo del Popolo, dressed in a special costume and surrounded by a large crowd, offers a pot of steaming soup to the child Jesus. At the foot of an improvised altar, baskets filled with water are placed, to be taken back the next day. They serve as pious gifts to friends, as this water is believed to have acquired special virtues while it remained before the nativity scene. In the same region, in the valley of Rosalecco, the locals still perform mysteres on Christmas, dating from the Middle Ages. They depict the entourage of the shepherds and the Magi kings, dressed in costumes they are proud to wear, and climb the nearby snowy heights while singing. In Tuscany and other regions of Italy, the Christmas log is highly revered. A clerk leads the way, holding aloft the bright star. Kings and shepherds follow in order, and make their way to a precipio set up in a hermitage atop the mountain. Sometimes, even in the popular language, the Christmas holiday is referred to by this single word, seppo, the log. The eyes are covered for the children, then they must spin around the log and strike it with tweezers while singing the canzonetta known as the Ave Maria of the log. This song has the virtue of causing a beneficent rain of toys and candies to fall upon them, according to the generosity of the assistants. Nowhere is Christmas more vibrant than in Naples. Note 53. P. Fantani, S.V. Seppo, Naples. The view of Naples, with its azure-hued gulf, its shores dotted with white villas, its picturesque promontories, and the smoking cone of Mount Vesuvius. The week leading up to Christmas is called, in Naples, the Bancarelle week, literally the counter week. A kind of frenzy of joy and distraction seizes the entire population, and for an 8-day period, it's a movement, an energy, a sort of furia that cannot be imagined. In 1904, it ended in a bath of light and azure 54. Note 54. We borrow some details from Naples newspapers. We strive to translate them as literally as possible, in order to preserve the nuances of a style full of delicacy and originality. A spring-like sweetness has graced these final days of the year, usually so rainy in Naples. Thus, the happiness of the small traders is complete. The Christmas markets have had for 8 days one of the most attractive appearances, like all the customs of this population half Eastern and half Spanish. Countless little shops rise up in the great central street of Naples, Via di Roma, Via Toledo, the street of Rome, once of Toledo. 55. A joyful crowd fills it and spills into adjacent alleys, squares, and quays. All middle-class families are restocked with necessities and sometimes even luxuries. Cheers, universal joy, carried to the highest pitch, a gigantic explosion of good humor and public felicity that feed on barely earned gains, prepared in advance and eagerly awaited. The Bancarelle stalls display an array of the most diverse shapes, the brightest and most varied colors. They stand in the squares, outdoors, among thousands of rolling tents where the aesthetic sensibility of the Neapolitan people arranges, in bizarre groups, the most diverse and shiny objects. However, as we have observed, for the Neapolitan people and local press, it is still known as Via Toledo. Note 55. When Italy annexed the Kingdom of Naples, the Italian government changed the name of the main street of Toledo and called it Via Roma in 1870. They are not just comestibles or utensils made from clay or glass in the most fantastical shapes. Even literature has its altars, small decorated temples within this noisy abracadabra of Neapolitan Christmas. Sometimes for a few cents one buys a book of great value, or an entire lot of brochures with torn spines and shredded pages. A curious and sympathetic public approaches these mountains of printed paper, and with studious glances seeks the desired work, perhaps overlooked by the bookseller. Indeed, there are countless Bancarelle where serious and solemn books, pamphlets, ancient in-folios and miniatures, every variety and subspecies of the volume, and especially manuscripts that cost so many drops of sweat, are carefully arranged. And today, Christmas 1904, perhaps for the first time in 20 years, thanks to the beneficent rays of a spring sun, Naples can display all the dazzling beauty of its markets enveloped in a nimbus of joy. What one must see above all is the picturesque fish market on St. Lucy's Quay. The whole city is out. Foreigners in ecstasy contemplate this spectacle as a fascinating fairy tale. On the eve of Christmas, after passing through a great number of streets lined with green garlands, fruit piles, vinegar preserves, cakes, liqueurs, one would think it is the last day when it is permissible to eat. For dinner, the strict menu includes vermicelli and fish juice, smoked broccoli in oil, capitone 56, and various fishes 57. At least 100,000 people are in motion to prepare the succulent meal for the 400,000 others who stroll idly or work, gripped by the most feverish impatience. Note 56. Capitone is the traditional and essential dish for Christmas dinner. It's a river or sea eel, sometimes a white and milky-fleshed moray eel. Note 57. The Neapolitans call them frutti di mare. How much does capitone cost? Andolin. Did you, sir? Seafood. They include oysters, crabs, lobsters, and shellfish of the most varied shapes. Such is the great question of the day. In fact, which Neapolitan does not eat capon on the evening before Christmas? One must go to visit St. Brigitte Street or Porto Street on the evening before Christmas. Everywhere one hears cries, capon live, fricheca, stu capitone, a una lira e otto, living capone. It still palpitates this capone at 40 cents a franc. It is a fantastic scene worthy of Gerardo del Notti's brush. They are there, standing in front of their baskets surrounded by lit candles, their shirt sleeves rolled up to the elbow. How beautiful to see these sailors with tanned complexions, old sea wolves who, on their fishing boats parents yellow, have defied many storms and have a thunderous voice accustomed to being heard amidst the noise of the waves. They occasionally stick their hands into these baskets filled with live eels, grab the biggest ones, twirl them in the air, and gesticulating with all their vibrant southern energy, they have a sort of snake charmer persona. At every street corner, the vendors from Procida 58 and Aschia attract attention with the curious costume of their island. Eindhoven, Pershumo, Karuar de Bourbon-Sal. Note 58. On Christmas Day, St. Michael's Day, and May 8th, the women of Procida wear their national costume, a red garment embroidered with gold, and they perform the country dance, the tarantelle. There is nothing more animated, more alive than the spectacle of Naples port on Christmas Eve, as the sun sets. Ina, who come to dine al fresco, facing the sea in the Neapolitan style. The crowd there displays its mad and carefree gaiety, its inexhaustible loquacity, its spiritual and buffoonish vigor. Merchants announce their goods with 1,000 lassi. Musicians play serenades. Amidst this indescribable commotion, the coracoli, small carriages that cram in from 12 to 15 persons, bring workers from Portici and Riese. Yes, in Naples, Christmas is noisy and joyful. Shouts and joy that obliterate the desolating melancholy that permeates the vast undergrounds of this good, generous, and sympathetic populace. Let no one believe, however, that Naples has become by enchantment the city of the dollar. For her, Christmas is only a parenthesis of happiness and splendor, at the end of a year often darkened by many deprivations. In a word, nothing living, picturesque, or sparkling like this people in delirium, under the beautiful blue sky of Naples, turquoise by day, sapphire at night. How not to recall these fine verses by Lamartine? Under this sky where life, where happiness abounds, on these shores that the eye takes pleasure in traversing, we breathed the air of another world. Elvire. And yet they say one must die 59. Note 59. Everyone knows this old saying, repeated gladly even by the last Neapolitan. Veder Napoli e dopo morì. See Naples and die. Oh, Caimoro only. Boigu at Milan Sumna. There are two kinds of Zamponia in use in southern Italy and Sicily. Naples also has its Christmas musicians. They come from the depths of the Abruzzes and the gorges of Calabria. They are called zampognari. It is first a bagpipe composed of a skin sack and 3 pipes of different lengths. 2 of these chalumeau always produce the same tone. The third is capable of varying its notes and resembles the oboe and clarinet. The continuous note from the larger chalumeau is called a broaden, intended to provide the bass. That of the second usually gives the dominant. There are also small zamponias consisting merely of a single chalumeau. When heard from afar in the mountains, this unique blend of immutable tones with melodic modulations sounds like a tinting of bells rather than the sound of a musical instrument. We have before us an engraving that reproduces the graceful scene of Professor Beachy of Rome. Like them, they do not embarrass themselves with unnecessary baggage. The roles and costumes of the Zampognari are roughly similar to those of the Pifferari in Rome. It is a Zampagnaro practicing playing the Christmas canticle. His instrument, indeed, has no reed and resembles a small oboe. A brown woolen coat serves them at night as both a mattress and a blanket. The money they earn is used to feed their families for the rest of the year. In Naples, more than in Rome, the Principio, these poor mountain people go from door to door, and the very pious and charitable Neapolitan people ask for novenas before the image of the Madonna or before the manger scene. Manger scene plays a great role in Christmas celebrations. In southern Italy, there are many manger scenes, and sometimes they show real artistic talent. At the bottom of a cave surrounded by rocks, one can see the stable and the manger scene where the Savior was born. At the entrance, little cherubs press their winged heads to get a closer look at the newborn. Around the San Bambino resting on the straw, tiny wooden figurines, dressed in clothes carefully made during winter evenings, represent the Holy Virgin and Saint Joseph in ecstasy. Then there is an entire procession of shepherds coming to offer their humble gifts. At the top of the cave shines the star that guided the Magi. Sometimes these figurines are highly prized. There are goats and sheep signed. These are surrounded by pages, men-at-arms, grooms, and Nubian slaves leading camels, vaquero worth their weight in gold. A dramatic author had a passion for the nativity scene, the Neapolitan Dom Michele Cuciniello. He had arranged behind brilliant display windows his pupazzi, small statues. He liked to have his visitors admire them. Michel the Dom offered to the city of Naples this treasure of art that one can visit at the Chartreuse Museum of San Martino. One could see everything that could enter into the composition of a nativity scene, from Archangel Gabriel to the humble peasant bringing her gifts in a basket, from Saint Joseph to the tavern keeper, from the Holy Virgin to the Black King. This nativity scene is located in the large room next to that of Charles III's gondola. The tavern keeper's cottage is a wonderful reproduction of Neapolitan customs. To the right rises the tavern keeper's cottage. Higher up is that of the laundress. On the left, a small bridge spans a torrent between the massive trunks of old oaks toppled. In the center, the broken columns of a ruined temple. Far away, very far, to the limit of sight, the countryside. Little verdant hills fade into the mist, and above it an azure sky gives this scene, at once profane and sacred, a most magnificent aspect. Copper utensils, bundles of herbs, farm animals, complete furniture, flower vases are all featured here. What expressions on those clay heads! Farther along, on the laundry terrace, clothes spread out on lines and drying in the sun, the little cage at the window wall, in perfect order. Over in the plain, horses gallop wildly, barely held back by their grooms. Farther away, wealthy peasant women dance the tarantella to the sound of guitars. What fineness in all these garments and adornments! What sparkle in those precious pearls! What richness in the procession of the three kings! What animation, what life in this whole landscaping, this foaming torrent, among enormous blocks and ancient trees, in this smiling, idyllic nature, among thick roses and flowering meadows. They advance, wearing turbans and dressed in flamboyant clothes adorned with gold and set with jewels. Numerous slaves lead camels laden with chests. Above all rises the pure note of faith. The Virgin and Saint Joseph, the little child Jesus lying on straw, the ox and the ass. Around the small columns that surround the manger, ivy and moss climb, and swarms of angels swing in the air glorifying God. The manger of Dom Michel, with its 80 statuettes, represents a value of 250,000 francs. A resident of the town of Caserta had in his home a manger of truly royal richness. The Magi kings, in dazzling costumes, brought real chests of gold and jewels. Pearls, rubies, emeralds, topazes shone from every corner. A woman had on her forehead a diamond so large and of such beautiful water that a princess would have gladly put it in her diadem. It will not be surprising to learn that armed soldiers guarded such a Principio day and night. On Christmas Eve, at midnight, the entire family comes to kneel before the nativity scene. The youngest child takes a waxen, 60, bambino, and places it between the Virgin Mary and Saint Joseph in a small cradle of moss. The zamponari begin their most beautiful symphony. Canticles are sung in response as everyone prays. It is a deeply moving scene. Note 60. From Delosier, Panorama des Fêtes Chrétiennes. All night on Christmas Eve, there are fireworks known as Triki-Trache, Amur, or Buin, and Ratman Shum, Erwalmado Begyu, or Andai. The streets and alleys become brighter than midday. Bengal lights sparkle on every floor and window. Flamelets rain down like fire on the heads of passers-by. The dead are few. There are indeed some wounded, but it's Christmas and next year will start all over again. Similarly, in public squares, on sidewalks and balconies, suns, girandoles, and various types of fireworks explode. In every street, in every neighborhood, it's a heavy shootout. It seems that in this city of 500,000 souls, a terrible struggle is taking place. 20 years ago, in Naples, in a second-rate theater, they performed La Città del Verbo Incarnato, The actors first played with great seriousness and dignity. The Birth of the Incarnate Word, a lengthy and tedious 5-act play in verse with a prologue. It is not located in the church. There is a rather strange custom in the small town of Catanzaro, south of Naples, in the later Calabria. It's not a presepio, but a kind of living nativity scene, a speaking creche. But at the end of each act, the Galari jesters, clowns, would appear on stage, engage in conversation with the Virgin Mary and Saint Joseph, and soon afterwards, left alone on the stage, they would tell, in dialect, the news from the port without doubt, in dialect the news from the port, without devilish wit. The action is highly grotesque. It appears to be populated by characters who move, gesture, speak, absolutely like puppets. Next to a cave rises a prison, then a palace, a Capuchin convent, a church. For example, Herod has just learned the news of the birth of a king more powerful than him. Immediately he falls into an extreme fury and orders all children under 2 years old to be killed with the sword. We then witness the murder of the innocents. We hear plaintive cries. Note 61. Mr. Lumini. The religious figures emerge from the convent and try to defend these poor victims, but they are beaten themselves until other religious arrive, singing psalms for the dead. Le Sacre Rappresentazione Italiane, p. 306. She is dressed in rich brocade, has natural tightly curled hair and earrings. On the island of Ischia, in both churches, one can see a decorated throne upon which stands a statue of the Virgin Mary. She wears a white muslin apron that she holds up with both hands as if to form a cradle. On Christmas Day, a baby Jesus is placed in the Virgin's apron. Only after communion does the priest place a consecrated host inside and close the door. In Capri 62, at the beginning of midnight Mass, the tabernacle appears open and empty, symbolizing that Christ has not yet been born. Throughout the night and all day on December 25th, bombs and gunshots resound incessantly, echoed by the mountains. Note 62. From the tip of the Capo, the view in Capri is magnificent, and has no equal in the world except the Bay of Rio de Janeiro and the surroundings of Constantinople. In the church of Massa Lubrenz, near Sorrento 63, there is a nativity scene that is an entire world. There are perhaps 200 figurines. It consists of rugged rocks filled with miniature figures. Shepherds, religious people, in a ravine, the 3 kings advancing with their entire entourage. Then villages, houses with curious people on balconies, workers in their workshops, people chatting in the public square, and angels suspended in the air. It is, so to speak, a reproduction of the nativity scene at the Chartreuse of Naples. Note 63. Near Sorrento is the picturesque convent of Deserto. From the terrace, there is a charming view of both the Gulf of Naples and Salerno, as well as the island of Capri. Throughout the region, passers-by greet strangers with these words: Buon Natale! Happy Christmas! It's a New Year's wish, 64. The same occurs in Rome. They still say, Buon Festa, Happy Holidays, in Illustrazione Popolare. Note 64. These interesting details about Ischia, Capri, and the surroundings of Sorrento were provided to us by 2 members of our family who attended the midnight Mass in the Church of Capri on Christmas Eve 1904. Popular illustration from Rome, under the title, E la squilla di l'anciano nella notte di Natale. This ringing, agreed upon as the Squilla di Natale, Christmas shrill, lasts for an uninterrupted hour. The shrill sound of Flanciano 65 on Christmas night. The following description is given. On December 23rd evening at 6 o'clock, a small bell from the Metropolitan Church of Santa Maria del Ponte begins to ring. In the meantime, shops and cafes close. All inhabitants return to their homes. Continuous salvos of musketry and other firearms resound from everywhere. At this moment, everyone falls to their knees and recites litanies and other prayers. At 7 o'clock in the evening, everyone is at home. The bell stops ringing, and all the bells of the numerous churches in the city of Lanciano chime in turn. This is the time when, according to popular belief, the Virgin arrived in Bethlehem. After the prayer is finished, children kiss the hands of their parents, grandparents, uncles, and aunts. Au, cowdware, and duum, or darrening. Note 65. Lanciano, in Lower Abruzzo, has 18,000 inhabitants, an archdiocese, a beautiful cathedral. A moment later, children who live far from their paternal home also arrive. They come to express their filial love and share in the joys of the reunited family, in memory of Mary's journey from Nazareth to Bethlehem. It took him an hour to make this trip, and during that time a bell rang. He would walk to a small chapel more than a kilometer away from the city, Sainte Marie della Canicella. Here is the English translation of the provided text. This is the origin of this custom. Monsignor Paul Tasso, a Neapolitan by birth, a prelate of great charity, and who was Archbishop of Lanciano from 1588 to 1607, had the habit of going every 8 to 1607 year, on the evening of December 25th, in a procession barefoot, followed by the clergy and the people. Anvel. Nina Nana di Manzoni Toctorni. After Monsignor Tasso's death, his successors abandoned the procession, but the custom of ringing the bell persisted. Dormi, fanciul, non piangere, dormi, fanciul celeste, sovra il tuo capo strider, non osin la tempeste, let them not dare the tempests. Sleep, child, do not weep, sleep, heavenly child, let storms rage above your head. First stanza. Sicily, Sicily, aptly called the Pearl of Islands due to the beauty of its landscapes and the mildness of its climate, offers a myriad of charming customs at Christmas time. The ship coming from Naples usually arrives in Palermo before sunrise. The morning scenery is truly delightful. The prominent and highly interesting Palermo Journal, Ora the hour of December 25th, 194, which we received graciously from an eminent professor of this city, provides valuable documents that we will translate and summarize while preserving as much as possible their local color. Soon appears Palermo Lao. Felice the happy bathed in light, circled by its golden shell, a fertile plain framed by a semicircle of grandiose mountains. To the left, above the rocky promontory of Zafferano, light gray clouds are encircled with pink by the first rays of dawn. The sky is clear of that pale blue which characterizes the ends of storms, and which all those who have sailed on Mediterranean well know. The smiles and sarcasms of strong minds and half-scholars have not succeeded in diminishing the fresh poetry of the Christmas feast. Our humblest villages. It is the blind poets. Without doubt, says Laura, there is certainly in our dear island, as everywhere else, for 2 or 3 days, family and friend gatherings where chosen dishes and succulent meals are served, followed by finely crafted desserts and fresh candies. But Christmas keeps its traditional stamp as a religious celebration in our bustling cities, and even everywhere, one hears the sad voices of the people's bards, mixed with the monotone noise of sistrums, the plaintive wails of violins, and in the distance, the rural sounds of bagpipes and zampone. 66 who sing the painful journey of the Holy Virgin, and Saint Joseph or the Ninareda lullaby, a kind of novena, preparatory to Christmas. Tajul. Every house that accepts them, and agrees to pay them, is marked with a broad black line drawn in charcoal. Note 66. These are also the shepherds who have come down from the mountains. They come to repeat their melancholic cantilene, steeped in sighs and tears. In Palermo, the blind poets form a kind of corporation. They travel through the countryside, attend all festivals, modify and revive the songs of their predecessors. They embrace all genres, memories of the Crusades, legends of St. Lucy and St. Rosalie, the 2 saints so popular throughout Sicily, an earthquake, a shipwreck, etc. They employ as much imagination to render these various subjects through poetry and music as the painters do to reproduce them on the carts of Sicilian peasants. The prayers, the pious cantiques of the Christmas novena Le Canzoni are very well known. They are almost the same throughout southern Italy and Sicily. Le orazioni, that are recited in front of the nativity scene in some villages in the Sicilian countryside, are much less known. One can judge by the beginning of his first sonnet from his bucolique. These are very short songs, invocations to the child Jesus, the Virgin, and Saint Joseph, the Patriarch. These prayers are written in the graceful Sicilian dialect that the poet Meli immortalized in his verses. Mountain ranges cut with valleys, rocks clad in ivy and moss, silvered pure waterfalls. Receive in your silent shelters the friend of peace and rest. Old trees bending with age, and caves where water droplets petrify before they fall. Murmuring streams and silent lakes, steep peaks and dark ravines, sterile reeds and flowering junipers. Mealy, bucolica. Sonnet Y. The first of these prayers, published by Valplatani, has all the grace of a small Flemish painting, ha tutta la grazia d'un quadretto fiammingo. Not even a cave was born from the bambino, in Bilema, in time of cold. He lay in straw like a little piglet. The Virgin Mother placed him there, and nearby was a tiny donkey, sitting at the manger, on the other side a meat cow, and in turn, all therein, shepherds. Jesus, beautiful and small, makes the straw die of cold. But like a cucuza, a type of gourd laughing, the cave shines like a paradise. Note 67. We owe this translation to the great kindness of our scholarly friend, Mr. Abbé M., the curé of Corsia, whose collaboration has been continuous since the beginning of our research on popular Christmas customs. In a cave was born the little child, in Bethlehem, at the return of the cold season, lying on straw like a poor one. Sicily also has its Christmases. One must not look for delicate images, historical continuity, or artfully rhymed verses. His gracious mother then laid him down, next to him. An ass stood on one side of the manger, and on the other side a tender ox waited. All around, the crowd of shepherds. Dear Jesus, gentle, beautiful, and tiny, died of cold on the straw. But as soon as his gracious lips smiled, the cave shone like a paradise. They are simple stanzas that follow in the whimsical spirit of a group of children playing in a flowery meadow. However, what rustic grace in these pious little songs, and what incomparable ingenuity in style and imagery. In the Garden of Noto, Jesus is born in a garden filled with aromatic plants. A drum and the noise of children playing announce his birth. The garden was bathed in perfume. There grew the little Jesus child. With trumpets and drums, they place him on the altar. All the angels begin to sing, with their beautiful voices, the welcome bambino. Welcome, come, come. We sing hymns, hymns, and hymns. We sing the litany of Palermo, the other two pious canzonet. Little songs from Valplatani seem even sweeter to me. The first has all the air of a Nina Nana lullaby. On the night of Christmas, the baby was born in a cave. At feeding time, his mother smiled at us. Roses and lilies she gathered for us. If we want to believe this other song by Valplatani, about the birth of our Savior in the cave of Bethlehem, there were not only angels, but also a certain character playing the bagpipe. Note 68, literally, a godfather. To the Georgian sound of this rural instrument, a sheep, with its curly woolen fleeces, danced. On the night of Christmas, there was a maiden and a companion who played on the zither, swinging the little rattle. Swings. On Christmas Eve, there was an angel, and another figure 68 playing the bagpipes, a sheep, with woolen flakes fringed dancing, a ravishing beauty. In the shadow of a chestnut tree. It is especially during Christmas celebrations that the children of Valplatani recite, in a somewhat monotonous rhythm, stanzas of 4 or at most 6 lines. The first seems an untarnishable painting in its graceful naivety, under a chestnut tree to Jesus. Come down 3 times with your little hand. There is Jesus. He calls us, by signaling with his small hand. A little child that I see from here. You are beautiful and so small. All the fervor of a fervent invocation vibrates in this other stanza. Little one of the cherry tree, beautiful and cute, when the sarasa appears, welcome to my house. You have come to my house. Come now to help me. In cherry season, come to my house. You have not yet come to my house. Come now to save me. At Christmas, children play at making creches in front of which they light small oil lamps before midnight. The creche is a mountain of sugar, with valleys, precipices, and caves that must represent, in miniature, the mountain of Bethlehem. The mountain is inhabited by about 30 chalk figures that our children call shepherds. There must necessarily be a stream made of glass, or silver paper, or even running water in a bed of white metal among sugar rocks, as a result of ingenious combinations. However, some of them have nothing at all to do with the pastoral costume. Thus he is known as, among the true shepherds, one of them, upon seeing the great unusual light that spread over Mount Bethlehem at the birth of Jesus, looks in fear. One sees a muleteer pulling a restive beast with reins, a washerwoman returning from the stream with a heavy load on her head, a fisherman casting his line into the waters of a river, a hunter shooting a bird perched on a tree, the scared one of the manger lo spaventato del presepe, zampogna, to puff up his cheeks. That other strikes a ring, and the children know them one by one, as if they were alive. One sees a shepherd carrying a bundle of wood, another stirring milk in a boiling cauldron. This one has removed, or is about to remove, a thorn that's swollen his foot. That one throws a stone at a stray cow. Such one blows into a bagpipe, But let's return to family joys. Let us revisit the most bustling streets of our Palermo. We are on the night before Christmas. Here are the shops of the most renowned fruit merchants. Their eyes, which know how to give life and animation to everything, follow them as they make their way to the cave where the child Jesus smiles at them, his arms open, surrounded by two animals warming him with their breath. Facades, arches, columns, capitals of an architecture very strange, offer themselves to our gaze. The material from which these sorts of houses are made, and which would delight a whole army of rats, is entirely dried figs. But who could render with the pen the vivid gradations of colors that our fruit merchants combine in such a scholarly manner? How can we describe this pyramid of honey standing out right next to a pile of winter pears that seem made of old gold? The custom of good Norwegians to offer wheat and bread to birds on Christmas Day is also found in several parts of Sicily, a charming custom, truly befitting Christmas, the festival par excellence of peace and joy. In some villages in Sicily, they maintain the practice every ancient on the island of lighting the Christmas log il ceppo di Natale. In Sicily, for example, women are in the habit of throwing breadcrumbs and grains of wheat onto roofs, balconies, and windowsills, so that on the day Jesus was born, the graceful airborne inhabitants will not lack food, and can brighten the day with a without. Their most joyful songs. Straw and grapevines are gathered, and a massive log is placed upon them, usually donated by a landowner who is observant of local customs. Ave Maria. As soon as the sun sets behind the mountains and the bell rings, Angelus, the representative of the holiday, takes care to set fire to the log, and ensures that it remains lit all night long. Some see in the burning of the Christmas log the symbol of the fire that the shepherds of Bethlehem would have kindled in their huts on this memorable night, when an angel announced to them the birth of Jesus. Others explain this custom by the necessity of warming the poor people who watch outdoors during this cold Christmas night. Nothing is more cheerful than the sight of this burning log surrounded by artisans and the poor. Some stand, others sit on stones, some smoke their pipes philosophically, while others nibble on roasted chestnuts under the ash of the log. Children crack nuts, and old people stretch their hands towards the fire to warm them up. Around the traditional Christmas log, like a vast fireplace, everyone gathers. One feels so good in this warm atmosphere, and then one amuses oneself. But soon the most joyful laughter breaks out, innocent banter is exchanged among friends, and all voices sing Christmas carols. In front of this large piece of wood that burns and crackles merrily, sending clouds of smoke into the air and throwing sparks, the crowd remains motionless at first, and the flame casts Spain. From time to time the fire is stirred, new bundles are added to the first, and the softest joy reigns in all conversations, until the last embers of the Christmas log fade away with the first light of dawn. Among northern peoples, the idea of Christmas is associated with that of cold, snow, and a freezing gale. Children there represent Santa Claus with his long white beard, and his clothes covered in clear, crisp frost. So on the day of Natividad, or there in the heart of Spain, on Andalusian soil, the sun shines brightly, the azure sky sparkles flawless, and on December 25th, the thermometer usually reads 12 degrees in the shade and 25 under the sun. Navidad, the joy of all, becomes loud and boisterous. During Christmas Eve, La Noche Buena, the Christmas season in Spain begins with Advent. The Good Night, as the Spanish call it, the streets resonate with cheers and the most deafening concerts. In Madrid, the eve of the first Sunday of Advent, a church court official, the Rota, 69, accompanied by royal stable grooms and trumpets, alguazils, and a large cortege, all dressed in 17th and 18th century costumes, rides through Madrid's main streets on horseback, and reads the decree concerning the proclamation of the Bull of the Bull of the Bull. Holy Crusade Bulla de la Santa Cruzada. Note 69. This court is modeled after that of Rome, which also bears the same name. It is called Rota, meaning wheel, because the room where this court meets is circular, so the judges seated form a circle. This bull, first granted by Julius II and renewed in 1849, by Pius IX, grants all Spaniards the same privileges as those in the former Crusades, bulls of Urban II and Innocent III. This privilege became a custom consecrated by the bull of the Holy Crusade. We were told in Miranda de Ebro that during the time of the Moorish invasion, Spanish peasants, at great risk to their lives, brought supplies to Catholic troops, which sometimes had to seek refuge in inaccessible mountains. The brave defenders of the faith and their intrepid suppliers were allowed to feast on Fridays to replenish their exhausted strength from constant toil. This allowed the Spanish to feast every Friday of the year for a small donation. To obtain this bull, one must reside in the kingdoms, provinces, and territories subject to the King of Spain. Foreigners, however, can validly enjoy the privileges of the bubble if they come to Spanish lands, even if only for a very short time and for any reason that brings them there. Note 70. The Bull of the Holy Crusade is typically defined as a papal document containing numerous privileges, inducements, and graces granted to the King of Spain to aid him in his war against the infidels. In the past, to enjoy the favor of the bubble, one had to go in person, fight against the infidels in the Spanish army, or equip at their own expense a soldier of this army, or make an offering. Today, it is enough to buy the bubble for a small offering, inscribe your name on it, and keep it at home. The Easter of the Nativity. Christmas is especially the great feast of the Basque countries. In Guipúzcoa, they say Las Pascuas de la Natividad. Among other privileges, the bubble grants the right to eat eggs and dairy products every day of Lent, as well as meat on all days of fasting and abstinence of the year. Note 71. In Spain, they say, Easter of the Nativity, and we are written from the Argentine Republic, where Spanish language and customs have taken root. It is customary to visit each other at Christmas time and wish each other Felices Pascuas de Navidad, Happy Christmas Easter 71. Easter of the Resurrection. These songs are most commonly accompanied by castanets and zambombas. This musical instrument. During the duration of the Christmas holidays, it is customary throughout Spain, cities and countryside, to sing pastoral tunes called villancicos, Christmas hymns. The child Jesus, having no equivalent in French, we feel compelled to describe it. It is a clay vase that roughly resembles an hourglass. The zambomba, so called perhaps by imitative harmony, is a kind of rural tambourine that would have come from the Moors. It is still found in Africa. One of its ends is covered with a thick, dried, and carefully stretched skin with an opening in the center. Through this opening, a stick about 50 centimeters long, planted perpendicularly and tied to the skin, passes. To make the instrument sound, it suffices to impart energetic back-and-forth motion to the stick. In the suburbs, everyone has their zambomba. Children, parents, old people. At every corner, merchants sell them. There are all kinds, some even truly luxurious. The sound box is adorned with paintings, and the stick is made from rare and precious wood. Fortunately, the use of the zambomba is limited to Christmas celebrations. That's enough. No matter how loud Christmas festivities in Spain may be, they are less so on Holy Saturday. On that day, around 11 in the morning, when the bells, having returned from Rome, begin to toll the Gloria in Excelsis, for half an hour, a most strange noise fills the air. Cooks strike their loudest pots with all their might, while on the streets, children armed with mallets beat on house doors as if trying to break them down. Such cacophony, should it last, would drive one mad. In Valladolid and Salamanca, young girls dance around statues of the Madonna, singing villancicos that often contain only unfinished thoughts, much like many popular melodies. We will quote only these two stanzas. Ardía la raza, y la raza ardía. Au, The bush was burning. Why no se quemaba, la Virgen Maria, and the bush burned, yet it did not burn. Virgin Mary, el niño labra la cruz. San José era carpinero y la Virgen costurera, porque ha de morir on ella. Au, Pisidor, un virgin, Ansiu, a garer, and a liar. Saint Joseph was a carpenter. The child works the wood of the cross. And the Virgin a seamstress, because in her he must die. The most interesting city from the point of view of religious and popular festivals is undoubtedly Seville. Note 72. According to another Spanish proverb, who has not seen Granada has not seen anything. Perhaps this is the sense in which one should understand the well-known proverb throughout Spain. Who has not seen Seville has not seen a marvel. We believe indeed that this city offers the most beautiful landscape of all Spain. Oh, here is the English translation of the provided text. Behold the joyful and grand panorama of the wonderful city of the Alhambra. Imagine a green and refreshing countryside, then around it, a frame of rolling hills shimmering with clear waters, exuberant in vegetation. Higher up, an amphitheater of mountains bathed in a soft blue light, and finally, above all, the eternal snows of Sierra Nevada, rising to 3,500 meters in the dark azure of the sky. It is not the Giralda Tower that stands out with its harmonious line proportions, nor its other monuments, or its art treasures, or Murillo's beautiful paintings, which have earned Seville its nickname the Enchanting One. Ella encantadora tutto. It is the delights of life, the festivals, and the perpetual movement of joy animating its people. Its grand Holy Week processions pasos are famous worldwide. First comes the pavero turkey dealer, pavos in Spanish. The Christmas celebration El Natividad is particularly popular. It largely takes place outdoors. The market is livelier than ever between the Tiana Bridge and the Plaza de Toros. It's an industry barely practiced except around Christmas. A few days before the feast, he appears in the streets, pushing his flock of birds. They walk with pride, fluffing their glossy feathers, shaking their stained jabots, attracting housewives with their gobbling sounds. The peacock cries out its wares and sells them with all the pride of its race. 73. Note 73. Louis Darcourt, illustration, 1890. Anchi, Angwer, and Cowarding, and Jiu, 74, for Christmas celebrations. In Barcelona, the city with broad and cheerful avenues, on December 21st, the feast day of St. Thomas. Note 74. The term Rambla, which comes from Arabic, denotes in all of Spain the dried bed of a river. Often, as in Barcelona, it is replaced by magnificent boulevards, which is why Cervantes' word still applies to the great city he calls a unique city, by its location and beauty, un sitio con belleza única. The cost of each ticket is 500 francs, but it can be divided into notes and fractions down to the smallest amounts. The Christmas lottery in Seville also adds an extraordinary allure and animation to the festivities. Its significance can be gauged from the value of the main prize, which usually exceeds 2 million francs. After the draw, winnings are distributed proportionally to the value of the tickets, notes, and fractions. Spaniards across the board are interested in this quasi-national endeavor, and even those living abroad often write to Seville to purchase tickets. Miniature landscapes come to life with characters and animals, paying little heed to local color or verisimilitude. A few days before Christmas, it is customary in many families with children to set up representations of the adoration of the child Jesus by the shepherds and the three kings. We call these types of creches nacimientos, births. In some families, they carefully plan in advance to create picturesque effects that friends will come to see, until the kings that these ephemeral constructions never surpass. This custom exists more or less throughout all of Spain. This preferred dance of the Spaniards is in a compelling three-beat rhythm with guitar and castanets accompaniment. In the southern provinces, after devotedly admiring the divine child, the Virgin Mary, Saint Joseph, the shepherds, the three kings magi, the traditional ass and ox, they spend a part of the night enjoying themselves and especially dancing fatir, fandango. During the intervals between dances, they drink aguardiente brandy and manzanilla. Its rapid movement, arm agitation, and the tremors of the dancers give it an animated character full of originality. Dry white wine. This intimate gathering of parents and friends concludes with a special dance in which everyone participates. All the attendees are seated in a circle. A lively young girl leaps up in the middle and quickly circles around, still dancing. She then stops in front of one of the spectators who is expected to replace her and perform a brilliant step, regardless of their age, status, or gravity. Note 75. Louis Darcourt Locke. Seat. This person then moves to another woman, young or old, who takes over the dance sequence, and so on until all dancers have had a turn. In the northern provinces, such as the Basque country, these noisy demonstrations are much less common. A measured slowness and a grave tonalities characterize actions and speeches. After midnight mass takes place the New Year's Eve feast, which consists of the besugo, a common fish in the region, fatty goose, and a dessert made up of nougats, Alicante, and Jejune. Sometimes guitar and zambomba accompany the tango, bolero, and, in the south, the Christmas pie 76, fried cod, chestnuts, and truffled turkey feature on the menu, washed down with full glasses of Valdepeñas and Manzanilla. Sevillanas. Spanish dances. Note 76. The favorite Christmas cakes for Spaniards are the turrones. In the Argentine Republic, the Christmas treat is pan dulce, sweet bread, a cake made with dried raisins that bakers produce in large quantities for this celebration. Every year, considerable amounts are sold in Barcelona on the Paseo de la Industria Industry Promenade. Les turrons, or maspanes, are enormous honeycakes with ground almonds, sweet potatoes, where Spanish imagination and grace take free rein in the decorations. They generally take the form of coiled snakes and are covered in colorful sugar arabesques, fondants, and candied fruits. They are wonderful to look at and delicious to eat. There is a range from small snakes to the largest boas. Note 77. Every Spanish family has its turrón for Christmas, and wealthy families splurge on those that cost In Spain, like Italy, Christmas replaces New Year's Day. They remain silent and composed. On Christmas morning before the Mass, Basque villagers also dance the fandango to the sound of guitars and castanets, but with a rhythm quite different from that of the people of the south. The dancers raise their arms like mill wings, face each other in affectionate gestures, without ever coming close to one another. Penetrated with the dignity of their roles, they seem to be performing some kind of priesthood. 78. Note 78. On a toppled stage, a loquacious noble, who has come from nowhere, sings the sad Malagueña, a plaintive melody from the time of the Moors, while a ray of sunlight illuminates his poor, wretched face, according to the Quinzaine, December 16, 1904. Christmas is above all a religious feast among the Spanish people, a faithful guardian of the simple and touching traditions of their fathers. Certainly, there are sometimes a few noisy demonstrations in churches, especially in poor and working-class neighborhoods. Castanets, Basque drums, and zambombas accompany villancicos, Christmas carols with a rather brisk tempo. Some instruments quite uniquely imitate the song of birds, especially the piercing cry of a rooster. During the offertory and as people leave, the organ itself, momentarily forgetting its usual gravity, plays variations on themes borrowed from the most popular airs. Amidst such concerts, the choir children jump around a bit. The crowd is agitated by a swaying that marks the rhythm too clearly, but the overall atmosphere remains serious and dignifying the holy place. Until the end of the 18th century in Valladolid, mysteries of the Nativity were performed in the middle of churches. In Seville, on Christmas Day, people still dance in churches, but everything is planned and arranged in advance, and the audience witnessing these exercises that are an integral part of the festival ceremony rejoices without losing their calm and collected demeanor. The characters who were on stage wore grotesque masks and questionable costumes. They were accompanied by all the popular instruments, castanets, Basque drums, guitars, violins. Suddenly, women and young girls entered in dance, holding lit candles in their hands. During the interludes, the organist played alone. He chose from his repertoire the most catchy pieces. All this festivity was intertwined with villanelles, or rustic songs. He who sang best was greeted by the faithful with the beautiful name of Victor. If we enter, on Christmas Day, one of the churches in the south of Spain, we will find a crowd pressing inside to sanctify this solemnity. The young Andalusian woman, in a black silk habit, with mantilla, kneeling on the bare stone 79, fixes her gaze on the Madonna dressed in her most beautiful damask and lace attire, and crowned with a rich diadem of sparkling pearls. She is straight, immobile, like a figure frozen in place, addressing a fervent prayer to the Virgin who cannot fail to grant it, on this day of the anniversary of the birth of her Son. Like those praying figures carved in marble or stone that one admires in the catacombs of Rome, or near the tombs of the Campo Santo of Genoa and other cities in Italy. Note 79. Spanish churches usually do not have chairs. In the north, the young Basque girl will also prostrate herself on Christmas Day at the Church of Lezo, near San Sebastián 80. It is no longer the Virgin Mary she implores. She stands before the revered image of Christ for hours, immersed in a kind of ecstasy. She confides to him all the secrets of her passionate soul, her sorrows, her illusions, her hopes, as she contemplates, with emotion and tears, her God with a striking appearance, limp limbs, ebony hair, and a tender, compassionate gaze that seems to fixate and understand her. It is to him that she comes to ask what the old lament sings. Holy Christ of Lezo, I ask thee three things, health, money, and a good husband. Saint Christ of Lezo, I beg thee three things, salvation, fortune, and a good husband. G.T. Note 80. In Basque countries, it is customary on Christmas Day to make three local pilgrimages particularly famous, those of Lezo, Itziar, and Aranzazu. As we wandered through these silent countryside of the Gipuzkoa province, it often came to our minds a beautiful page by Pierre Loti about Mass in the Basque country, and especially these final lines. To do the same things that countless ancestors have done for ages, and to repeat blindly the same words of faith, is supreme wisdom, supreme strength. For all these believing singers there, he withdrew from the ceremony, the immovable ritual of Mass, a sort of peace, a confused but tender resignation to the impending annihilations. We have seen entire families kneeling before the miraculous Christ of Burgos's beautiful cathedral, or before the Virgin del Pilar Pilier, Virgin, of the vast basilica in Zaragoza. Living in the present moment, they surrendered a little of their fleeting personality to attach themselves more firmly to the dead lying beneath the tiles, and to continue them more accurately, forming with them and their future descendants those resilient and enduring groups known as a race. We remain to speak of Spain's Christmas Mass, Midnight Mass, and Day Mass. Nothing in our travel memories has given us a higher idea of faith that works wonders, and of the burning charity of a people with brave hearts and deep, true religion. The Midnight Mass is called the Misa del Gallo, Mass of the Rooster, or the Song of the Rooster. It offers nothing particularly special. It is celebrated in most churches in Madrid. Groups of working-class men walk through the busiest streets, singing. At the end, the faithful sing villancicos, accompanied by various instruments, creating a noisy spectacle that surprises and astounds foreigners. Since midnight, cafes, especially those in L.A., Puerta del Sol, fill up with an animated crowd. Visiting the fruit market in El Plaza Mayor is interesting, especially on Christmas Eve. There are numerous brightly lit shops. On Christmas Day, monasteries open their chapels, usually closed to the public, and the midnight Mass is celebrated with great solemnity. Note 81. A la Puerta del Sol, Sundor, Madrid's largest and most vibrant square, it gets its name from the old gate demolished in 1570, from which one could see the sunrise. Every believer brings, carefully wrapped in his coat, a peculiarly twisted candle shaped like a serpent. In the glow of lights, a crowd gathered with fervent faith and expansive piety appears in the main nave and extends to the sanctuary. It's a succession of feverish signs of the cross, kisses on the floor, blows on the chest, fiery and supplicating glances moving from the altar to the Virgin and from the Virgin to the altar. The religious, due to a secular custom, celebrate at once the glory of the Most High and that of their sovereign 82. In the church, under the high dome of the famous Loyola convent, built on the site of the house where St. Ignatius, founder of the Jesuit order, was born at, the midnight mass the organ plays, Basque drums and castanets. Note 82. Eloquenzang, look, cite. It was there, they had told me, where old traditions found refuge. Around the organ, the nuns were grouped. I have never heard a mass sung with such a cheerful rhythm. Mr. Etienne Rose describes, in a style full of charm and humor, a Christmas mass in Madrid. On Christmas Day, desiring to attend a picturesque service, I went to the grand mass at the General Hospital. The celebrant, all aglow, began the Kyrie on some bright and alert notes, and the choir responded in perfect harmony. An old nun, wrinkled under her white veil, beat the time decisively. She was an excellent conductor. The voices were pure and fresh, and the instruments perfectly tuned. All of it would start, stop, and resume in an excellent measure. But they chirped so well, with such kindness, that it was impossible to hold it against. Only sometimes, the chirpings were a bit late, and would chirp intermittently, in the middle of silence or when it wasn't their turn. There were 2 zambambas, 2 bass drums, castanets, 2 trumpets, 2 whistles of different tones, a cuckoo, a cock, a nightingale, and 2 of those small clay pots that are filled halfway, and from which one blows to imitate the chirping of birds. Besides, the conductor would make wide eyes, and everything would fall into place. It was as if a mass was being sung in a cage. The cock, nightingale, and cuckoo were especially wonderful. They called out to each other and responded with impeccable measure. The drums and castanets formed the bass and never rested. Note 83. Marne Review. Christmas, 1902. The entire office was celebrated in this way, and with such naivety, simplicity, such touching faith, with such vivid and sincere belief, that the smile which had come to my lips at the beginning disappeared very quickly, giving way to a rel. Emotion. 83. After midnight mass, it is customary in Spain to greet each other with the words, Nacido el niño, the child is born. Oh. Note 84. The law of least effort makes the D disappear in pronunciation, and usually one says, Nació el niño. On Three Kings Day, Dia de Reyes, in Madrid, a lively crowd fills the streets and shops, but soon a messenger arrives to announce that the kings have taken a different route and are entering the city from the other end. In the evening, children carry torches, ladders, bells, and drums, parade through the streets and squares, stopping to wait for the kings in the most remote areas. On this, the entire group heads to the indicated place, where the same scene starts over. On Epiphany Day in Madrid, at the Royal Chapel, a solemn mass is celebrated by the cardinal chaplain. The king, queen, and all the royal family attend, along with the court in full dress. Note 85. After the mass, the king has 3 beautiful chalices carried to the altar. The cardinal consecrates them, and the king sends them, as a memento of the 3 wise men, to 3 poor Churcheside 5. This edifying detail and several others were told to us by a churchman, who spent 2 years in Madrid and had frequent dealings with the Spanish royal family. End. Table. Preface. Christmas in Sweden and Norway. The mysterious gift. The national meal. Midnight mass in the village. The feast of the little birds. Christmas in England. Masquerades. Vast preparations. London's bustle. The Baron of Beef. Decorating the home. The traditional log. The singers. The family meal. The swan on the king's table. Relief for the poor. Games. The evening gathering. Boxing Day. Christmas cards. Christmas in Crimea. Christmas in Transvaal. A midnight mass in exile. The royal offering on Three Kings Day. Christmas in Germany. Announcement of the holiday. Origin of German customs. New Year's Eve. Christmas cake at the Berlin court. Children's Christmas. The Christmas tree. The Christmas carol. Family gathering. Valet Rupert. No. Visit from the child Jesus. St. Nicholas. The Christmas tree in 1870. The Christmas tree at the barracks. Patriotic gesture. Christmas in Italy, Rome. Pifferari. Cantata to the Virgin. Shops on Piazza Nelvon. Creches. San Bambino. Dorty. La Befana Torti. La Befana's Rounds Dorty. Christmas Mysteries in Lica. Ave Maria of the Log. Christmas in Naples Bancarel Week. Fish Market. Doer. Naples Port. Zamponeri. Neapolitan Creches. The Nativity Scene at the Chartreuse Museum. Fireworks. The Caserte Nativity Scene. The Drama of the Birth of the Incarnate Word. The Talking Nativity Scene of Catanzaro. The Bells of Lanciano. Christmas in Sicily. Christmas Musicians. Graceful Sicilian Dialect. Christmas Prayers. Devout Carol. Children's Nativity Scenes. Palermo's Shops. Bird's Meal. The Christmas Log. Christmas in Spain. Noisy Celebration. Easter of the Nativity. The Bubble of the Holy Crusade. Orwell in Canonim. Duo and Mar. Silanchicos. Noi. Zambomba. Way. Uina Moral. I should do or morning. I will bring Miss When. Our way easy. Holy Saturday. Vallado Leeds. Christmas. Seville's Christmas. Turkey Cellar. Seville Lottery. Y. Nativity Scenes. Fandango. Or Turons. Mistletoe Mysteries in Valladolid. Christmas Prayer in Seville. Christmas Prayer in Lezo. Midnight Mass. Mass of the Day at the General Hospital. Three Kings Day in Madrid. The Offering of the Spanish King. End of table. Transcriber's note. Follows irrelevant material that is found in the first pages of the book that served to produce this document. Aurel, Dec 3rd, 1905. Net price. 1 franc available from the author Pithivier's Modern Printing Press. 1 Impasse de l'Église, 1906. A. Bruant Vic, General. In 1904, the major Paris newspaper, Le Gaulois, honored us with its interesting illustrated Christmas issue. We published in 1903 on popular Christmas joys in our ancient provinces, and in 1904 on Christmas in the northern countries. 2 brochures from which a large number of newspapers, magazines, and religious weeklies have drawn excerpts. We hope that our Christmas in foreign countries will receive the same favor this year. Our friends from the Asian Society, scattered across the globe, have sent us letters brimming with interest and scholarship. Since our voyage to the Holy Land in 1893, presided over by His Eminence Cardinal L'Ingenieux, of pious, illustrious, and revered memory, we have collected numerous notes on the established customs surrounding Christmas and Epiphany. We intend to publish shortly. Our colleagues in France and abroad, whose science and gracious charity we had the opportunity to appreciate, have also offered their most benevolent and useful assistance. The folklore of Christmas, or origin and purpose of this book. Our work will be structured as follows. Foreword. An essay on popular Christmas customs in all countries. Introduction. Christmas ephemeris. A summary of the historical events that occurred on Christmas Day. Chapters on the solemnity and popularity of Christmas. 2. Third. Christmas Eve and the legends told during that time. The Christmas Log. IV, or Christmas processions, secular and religious. V. Characteristics of midnight mass season. Christmas gifts, Christmas tree and Christmas stocking the 7. New Year's Eve and Christmas cakes the 8. The origin, naivety, and universality of Christmas anime. Nativity. Christmas in southern countries the 3rd. Scenes X, pastorals and mysteries of Christmas Broy. Christmas in northern countries the 12. Christmas in mission countries the 14th. Epiphany conclusion. These universal and popular Christmas customs prove the divinity of our Lord Jesus Christ. We would be very grateful to our readers for providing us with new documents from their readings, travels, or friends. These documents are mainly found in newspapers, religious magazines, and weekly publications that appear between December 15th and 30th each year. Those who have collections of these various publications can refer to previous year's issues. As information, these articles have great value for us. In every country, the local press contains very interesting articles about the peculiar customs of each land. The most famous writers, prose, and poets from all countries have spoken with admiration about our Christmas traditions. Frédéric Mistral sang the Boucher de Noël in that beautiful and harmonious Provençal language that he speaks so well. Who doesn't know the Dernier Boucher by Théodore Botrel, with a distinctly Gaulish air and a Breton flavor? Madame de Sévigné recounts with refinement and joy how the Réveillon Christmas Eve was celebrated in her wonderful Carnavalet Hotel. We find in Schmid's graceful Weihnachtsabend, Twelfth Night, a delightful description of the nativity scene, and Shakespeare himself, in Hamlet, makes reference to one of our most popular Christmas legends. Once again, we ask our friends to kindly inform us of their discoveries in this vast field of our national literature and foreign literatures. They will thus help us complete the work we have undertaken for the edification of our brothers, the popular glorification of the divine child of Bethlehem. This brochure is sold for the benefit of the 3 free schools of Pithiviers. We ask our readers to spread the word among their acquaintances. End of Project Gutenberg's Noël, dans les pays étrangers, by Alphonse Chabot.